The story begins on a battlefield where a huge stone beast slams the ground while a guy with a shield tries to stop it. It looks intense, but it turns out to be just a low-level dungeon called Margoyle. The guy with the shield gets punched right in the face. Then, someone in the back tells him to stop getting hit like that and to learn how to parry the attack to the side. Meanwhile, another group chimes in, saying that it's time to attack. One of them slashes the creature and the whole team charges in, hitting the golem from all sides. That just pisses it off and it activates some kind of red power. The smaller guy with the shield warns everyone to be careful. It's gone into berserker mode and tells them to stay close to him. The mages start casting spells and one of them wearing a cap yells at the clueless guy in the back to give him some mana because he's run out. That clueless guy. That's Sano Aruto, your typical low-level hunter, with the skill to give mana to others. From his dumb expression and useless skill, you can already guess. Yep, he's our protagonist. Not only does he have a mediocre skill, but he also has to go through a whole ritual just to cast mana onto other people's backs. So, the golem charges again, but this time our protagonist casts mana onto his friend's back, making it easier for the guy to use magic and finish off the creature. The dungeon is low level, sure, but everyone looks completely exhausted. Then, a muscular guy comes up and tells Sano, since he barely helped in the raid, he can at least clean up the rest of the place. The group starts to wonder why a guy with a damage skill is acting as a mana support. The one in orange says that, technically, the kid is an attacker. He just has a single skill, generating mana. At least it's, basically, infinite mana. Honestly, that skill is kind of broken. Even if the guy is weak, right? Get real. That's exactly what the other guy is thinking too, but then he explains that in this world, mages can also absorb mana from priests, so it's not that special. And the guy in the cap adds, that's why this useless guy hasn't even reached level 30 after 5 years. While hitting some rocks with a pickaxe, Sano thinks to himself that those idiots keep talking loudly on purpose for him to hear. Still, no matter what they say, he's not going to give up. Then, we cut to the Great Sage's Guild building. Slamming his hands on the desk, the protagonist demands to know why they're suddenly trying to transfer him to the production department. The old man says that, unfortunately, Sano has to understand that there's no one left in the company who can keep up with him on hunts. He simply can't be a professional hunter at level 29 when all you have is a single mana generation skill. Sano tries to argue that it's incredibly useful. He can provide almost limitless mana. Besides, he's about to hit level 30, which is a big deal, but the guy just says that most mages and healers already have mana absorption skills, so what Sano does isn't that useful, and it's not like reaching level 30 is going to change anything. He adjusts his glasses and says the decision has already been made by the higher-ups, so he better just accept it. At that moment, Jaruto realizes that yes, if he refuses, he's going to get kicked out of the guild. Later, sitting on a bench, he remembers the guy's final words. Unfortunately, we just don't see any potential in you. The poor guy is sitting there wondering how he ended up unemployed out of nowhere. The truth is, most people assume his skill is just absorbing mana and transferring it to his teammates, but it's actually a little different, though he's obviously never told anyone the whole story. As he looks at an onigiri in his hand, a screen appears asking if he wants to copy the item using CTRL+C. He clicks yes, a light flashes, and boom, the onigiri is duplicated in his hand. That's right, folks. He has copy and paste. He basically copies and then pastes. Yep, he's the Windows guy. The problem? Everything he copies disappears the moment it leaves his hand, which means he can't copy broken gear and get rich like Elon Musk. Even worse, just to copy his stupid dagger, he needs to be level 90. So, what is he doing to help others for now? He copies his own mana, keeps the original, and gives the copy to others. Since he keeps the original, he never runs out of mana. He's tried copying other skills before, but they all have ridiculous requirements. The only thing the guy wants is to gain a few more levels. That's it. Then, life would finally change. The second he can start copying equipment, it's game over. That's a whole other level. Then he sees a news article on his phone. The long sword of the Galician dragon has just arrived in Japan. It's a super rare and ridiculously powerful item because the moment you use it, you jump 200 levels at once. Man, I've played a lot of RPGs, but I've never seen something so broken. Completely unbalanced. The only problem is, you need to be level 30 or higher to use it. He immediately imagines himself with that sword. If he could just copy it once and keep the copy forever, boom, he'd be level 230. But the problem is, the sword just arrived in Japan and its durability is super low, which means it will only survive a few more hunts. So instead of using it, they're going to put it on display. And in theory, that's his perfect opportunity to copy it. All he desperately needs is to reach level 30 within a week. A few days pass, and now I have no idea what this monster is. It looks like a group of flying bats, maybe, or giant blood-sucking mosquitoes. Wait, no. 6 legs. So they're probably spiders, right? Though I honestly don't know why I call those things bloodsuckers. Their mouths are full of teeth. Man, they're dangerous. It was an unregistered dungeon, unrecognized by the guild. A blond guy looks back and asks for mana. Our dear Sano Gerudo is there doing the only thing he knows how to do. Thanks to him, the guy unleashes a giant flame and sets fire to everything. Meanwhile, our poor loser can only stand there, thinking about how insane the difference between them is. He looks at his status window, praying he's leveled up. Then, out of nowhere, another guy appears behind him and tells him to stop staring at windows. Nothing's going to change just by doing that. Gerudo apologizes, saying that he just got a little distracted. Then, the guy adds that if he keeps standing around like that, he's going to have to pay a spectator fee for the dungeon, which would be a beer after the raid. At least that guy is laid back, which means, of course, that he's going to die. Poor guy. His name is Weekwe Gana. Today, let's see how many seconds he lasts in this story. Gerudo actually feels hopeful. I mean, sure, it's an unregistered dungeon, but at least he has a chance to level up here. They continue deeper into the cave. Then, suddenly, one of them stops and tells everyone to get ready. They're entering the queen's chamber. Behind a pillar, there she is, a giant creature surrounded by a nest full of eggs. Her name, Alexa, a level 80 spawn. Oof, just a little above our protagonist's pay grade. Huh. He's already thinking that if one of those legs touches him, he'll be turned to vapor. One of the party members asks, why does Gerudo look so scared? He wasn't going to fight. Sure, the spider looks easy, but you have to stay on your toes. If you get caught in her web, you'll be stuck there until she eats you alive. Also, it's best to stay away from the eggs. Those aggressive little monsters could pop out at any moment. Then, the blonde guy yells at the leader to stop explaining everything as if Gerudo were a tourist. So yeah, Gerudo just stands there doing what he does best. Nothing. Then the blonde guy, being the genius he is, angrily steps forward and kicks a rock right into the web. Instantly, the queen wakes up and lunges in for a bite. The tank jumps in front of the blow, screaming that they're toast now, all thanks to this mage idiot. But the guy is a beast, blocking the attack and even slicing off one of the spider's legs. He tells everyone to scatter and stay away from the eggs. The whole party starts attacking her from all sides, swords flying at her mouth while our boy Gerudo hides behind a pillar. Pretty crazy. They're actually putting up a fight against a level 80 boss. Then, suddenly, the spider turns around and points its rear end at everyone. The tank yells at them to take cover behind the pillars, but no. The blonde idiot is already charging up another fireball, talking big about how they've beaten her many times before, so there's nothing to fear. He launches his attack and web bombs fly everywhere, crashing against the cavern walls. His fire spell hits, but it doesn't seem to do any damage. He keeps yelling about pride and how he's not giving up on this attack. Gerudo tries to warn him, but it's already too late. The guy just keeps casting spells. The tank with the headband yells at him to stop before the eggs hatch, but Gerudo can see it's already over. All the eggs start to crack. The tank tries to say something, but he gets hit and slammed into the ground. Right at that moment, Ike Gana appears screaming. It's coming from everywhere, and yep, webs from all directions, enveloping everyone, sticking them to the ground, to the pillars, to everything. Please, let the blonde guy be the first to die for this stupidity. And yep, he screams in despair. Oof. And he's crushed. Our boy Gerudo is now stuck to a pillar, watching his friend get devoured. It's time to place your bets. Option 1. He levels up at the last second, copies his skill and saves the day. Option 2. A giant, sexy waifu appears to rescue him. Option 3. He dies like an idiot, and the story ends here. Well then, after the spider finishes tearing his friend apart, it lunges at Gerudo, cutting the web and sending him flying. Blood spurts from every hole in his face, and right at that moment, the system asks him if he wants to paste what he copied. That's when the cheeky bastard smiles and says that his skill isn't so useless after all. Other things disappear when he copies and pastes them, but he doesn't. That's why every time he enters a dungeon, he makes a copy of himself as a backup. So just like in a game, when he dies, he pastes himself somewhere else, and the previous body disappears. I mean, I made 56 bets and not a single one was right. It turns out the copy he makes is like inside himself. In other words, he's a walking clone, so when he dies, he just respawns. He dies again, he respawns again. Now he's back behind the pillar, all mangled and broken. He can't die, but he can't escape either. Then he sees one of the guys still trapped in the webs, the leader, the one we knew was going to die begging for help. But Gerudo knows there's no way to save that guy, the boss is tearing everything apart, and Gerudo decides to try something. He's furious that after all this, he might die without even landing a single blow. Just as the boss attacks, Gerudo slashes at its leg, managing to deflect the blow. At that moment, he gains some experience for landing a successful hit and finally levels up. But just as he sees the notification, bam, the boss lands a massive blow to his chest. Once again, he had already backed himself up and copy-pasted himself back into existence. The problem is, his attacks still do absolutely nothing to this boss, but our clever boy is about to pull a Re-Zero style move. It doesn't matter if he has to die hundreds of times. One day he's going to defeat this monster. The creature attacks again and Gerudo charges towards it. He mutters that cut after cut, he will eventually win. 3 days pass, after countless deaths, and most of his companions' weapons destroyed, Gerudo has finally gotten much stronger. Meanwhile, the Spider Queen is looking rough. It can't heal from any of the damage he's dealt. It launches another wave of webs, but this time he dodges them. He's getting used to the speed of its projectiles. It tries to strike him again, but he jumps, climbs its leg, and goes straight for its head, yelling for it to just die already. He plunges his sword directly into its brain, which immediately snaps like a cheap twig. It throws him, slamming him into the ground, and lets out a roar. But just as it's about to bite him, cracks spread all over its body. Its HP finally hits 0. It explodes into pieces. Gerudo is just left lying there, completely exhausted. After so many deaths, his brain is basically mush. Then, ding ding, a flood of notifications for leveling up fills his screen. He is awarded the reward for defeating the Great Spider Queen. Our Marvel-style hero decides to go check on his friend after 3 whole days. But just as he's leaving, something drops beside him. With a thud, he looks up and, oh no, a bunch of spiders. Get out of here, you creepy albinos. The problem, he has no weapon and the guy next to him is completely wrecked. He doesn't want to just let him die. Flashback, 2 hours earlier, on a bridge in Tokyo. In a car, a soldier named Moore Grant, level 112, asks a girl named Aries how many times she's been to Japan. She's a level 131 mage and says this is her 2nd time. He asks if it's her mother's homeland. She says it doesn't matter, she's here for only one reason. There's something that she wants to find in one of Japan's dungeons. Grant says it would be great if she found it, but she warns him that not to get too involved in her business or he'll end up getting hurt. Just then, a voice over the intercom announces that the truck is crossing the Rainbow Dungeon Gate or the Rainbow Bridge Dungeon, whatever. It's a rainbow. It's a bridge. There's a dungeon involved. All electronic devices will be disabled for 5 minutes due to electromagnetic waves. Apparently, there's a dungeon right under the bridge and the guy was eager to check it out. Nearby, in an office, a hunter named Shinoda Satoru, level 21. So yeah, he's low level. He complains that this place is so boring. His partner next to him says, it's probably because the guy only got the job through connections. And let's be real, without connections you don't get into a place like this. Suddenly, a slime bumps into Satoru's leg. He bends down to pick it up, saying this one is kinda cute, much better than the creepy ones you find inside dungeons. He asks if it's normal for these little guys to be outside. The other guy says yes, but he sounds nervous. Then, bam, something hits Satoru's back. He turns around and just the shadow is enough to tell. A giant ogre is about to turn him into jam. Yep, game over. That guy is paced now. Back to the present, our beloved Sano Haruto survived once again with his trusty Kroll veto trick. His goal now is to reach level 50. That's usually the point where things start to get easier. You can finally find good dungeon parties. And, of course, better parties mean better loot and better experience, feeling good about life and thinking that it's finally his time to shine. Suddenly, a group pushes past him, yelling to get out of the way. He's confused, trying to understand why everyone is running around like headless chickens. Someone at the front asks if they're really going in before the major guilds arrive. The other one says they have to because they're bringing the legendary sword. Mergen gets the news. Good news, the sword is nearby. Bad news, a dungeon just broke out in that area. On top of the association building, some airships are getting ready to take off. The hunters seem more focused on protecting the legendary longsword because, yeah, that thing is worth a fortune. But someone steps forward and says to follow her orders. She's the leader, the most serious-looking girl we've seen in days, announces that the association's priority is to kill monsters and rescue civilians. As she boards the ship, she says everything else can be discussed later. That's when someone from the back starts shouting that he wants to go too. Nana ignores him and tells everyone to get on board and, of course, it's our boy Sano, begging to let him go with them. He says he's been in the guild for 5 years and that he knows everyone. He admits he's not that strong, but he wants to help save civilians. She looks confused, probably wondering what the hell this walking trashcan thinks he's going to do. So there's Haruto, giving this dramatic speech about how every bit of help counts to save lives. Nace, clearly more interested in leaving than debating, just sighs and lets him on. The next second, Bam is already inside. She casually mentions that she heard he saved a rookie in the spider's nest. It seems he's a really altruistic guy. He thanks her while thinking to himself that he only saved that poor guy because there was a profit in it. Just like how he's only here now for the loot. The other hunters start talking. Didn't we stabilize the Rainbow Bridge dungeon like 3 weeks ago? Why is this one failing again? Nana tells herself that things like this happen all the time, which is why they always have to be ready. Their job is to make sure the disaster from 15 years ago doesn't happen again. Cue flashback, thank you. Back then, a bunch of dungeon gates exploded at the same time. There weren't enough hunters in the world to face them. The creatures roamed freely. It was during that chaos that Haruto's mother was crushed by a car, but that day he also saw some kind of transcendent being like something from another dimension. That's when he got his ability or his curse. Hard to say. All the voice said was 20 years. He still doesn't know what that means. Is it the duration of the ability, his lifespan, or something else? But he does know that he has a mark on his neck and the time is running out. He's convinced that entity only appeared because of the great disaster. Maybe the hourglass mark is counting down to the next catastrophe. If that's true, then he has 5 years left. 5 years to become the strongest hunter he can. Back on the bridge, boom. The gate bursts wide open. Cars go flying like pebbles, chaos everywhere. The hunters on the ground are already overwhelmed. There aren't enough people to protect the civilians. A little goblin tries to stab a kid who manages to land a hit with his sword on its stomach, but just as a goblin comes from behind, someone cuts it down in midair. Wait, did these two really survive the raging orc from before? These guys are tougher than they look. The guy tells the spoiled rich kid to focus. Next time, he's not going to save him again. It turns out that when that orc was about to crush them both, he basically tackled the kid out of harm's way. He barely saved them. Shinoda Satoru, with an emotional face, thinks, this guy has saved me twice now. He asks if reinforcements are coming, but the other one says something's not right. Still, they should be on their way. For now, the best option is to cross the bridge and join them. No solo hero plays until backup arrives. Meanwhile, a giant bear is pounding on a truck. It's a level 190 monster. Behind it, Grant nervously asks if the truck will hold. Ares says not to worry. He's using his defensive skill at the maximum level. Not even a level 400 beast could break it that easily. Everyone looks up and sees the Great Sage's ships arriving. Wait, no, those aren't the Great Sage's ships. Grant yells for everyone to watch out. It turns out what they were really seeing was a giant dragon named Quesisha. Nanastes tells everyone to brace for impact. The beast charges up an attack. Boom. The blast hits the ship directly. The whole bridge shakes, it's collapsing. Okay, but wait, where are the guild's ships? From the looks of it, they're on top of the dragon. Or maybe not. Honestly, I'm confused too. 1 second it's the bridge, the next it's the ship. It launches another fireball and this time it actually hits the real ship. Total chaos. People are jumping into the air to fight. Nanase is already on the ground. One of the officers says the association will take over now. They all look confident, but let's be honest, these guys have side character death written all over them. Nanase, meanwhile, asks about a certain hunter, Sulhatjun. Sometimes they use his Korean name, sometimes the Japanese one. I'm confused too, don't worry. But she seems confident that guy isn't going to die here, so she casts a hellfire spell, which looks more like water, but oh well. It hits the boss head-on. Back with Haruto, he's in the air using a spiderweb skill on a light pole, swinging to safety like a nerdy Spider-Man. Everyone else is dying all over the place, and this guy is still worried about copying that legendary dragon's sword. Meanwhile, the association's group is advancing across the bridge. Everyone is on edge, saying it's too dangerous for them. Of course, nobody wants to fight Quesisha, but it's the fastest way to close the gate. Meanwhile, Haruto is calmly walking through monster corpses, all sliced to pieces. These things weren't that strong. The real problem with the wolves is that they never come alone. Nearby, Shinoda Satoru is cutting down enemies, screaming at the top of his lungs, but his partner, the one from before, got bitten in the ribs and is not doing well at all. Haruto takes a quick look at the situation, trying to analyze things and decides, yeah, not my problem. He has more important things to think about. The big guy, the one who saved his friend earlier, yells at Haruto to run. He says there's no way he'll survive this mess without a top-tier hunter. Just then, a huge claw lands nearby and a whole pack appears. They were moon wolves, and the problem with them, even though they're only level 15, is that they always attack in large numbers. Man, Shinoda Satoru, he might not be the protagonist, but he's got guts. He yells that if his senpai got hurt protecting him, then he'll die protecting his senpai. That's when Haruto remembers saving that team leader in the spider dungeon and, oh boy, here we go again. Time to do something stupid, huh? A wolf leaps at the kid, and, from the looks of it, he's about to get bitten. Oh, no, wait. I thought Haruto was going to save him, but the kid turns around and cuts the wolf's head off by himself. Another one lunges from behind, and, again, the kid manages to defend himself. Looks like Haruto really doesn't want to help, huh? Then, a third wolf jumps right for the back of the kid's neck. Finally, our protagonist shows up and shoulder tackles it in midair. Come on, Haruto. Maybe bring a weapon next time. Yeah. He asks the kid if he's okay. The kid says yes, but tells him to look around him. Yeah, the number of creatures is still huge. The kid says Haruto should run, even if they are low-level monsters, they can't handle this many. But Haruto just smiles and says this is the perfect situation for him. The kid, who honestly feels more like his little brother by now, is completely confused. Haruto pulls something from his inventory and says it annoyed him that he couldn't sell it, but now he's excited to see how it interacts with his skill. The wolves lunge and Satoru screams in a panic, but then Haruto throws a CTRL+C Mazui, using the giant web skill he copied from the boss. Suddenly, the wolves are all tangled up, choking and flailing, crashing into each other. They're trapped like spaghetti in a giant meatball, completely unable to fight back. In a matter of seconds, a tower of tangled monsters forms and Haruto just stands there like a boss, leveling up. Life is good. Exactly as he expected. An area of effect immobilization skill is perfect against mobs. Satoru is just lying there like, who is this guy? He asks if Haruto was sent by the Hunters Association, and Haruto, without technically lying, says yes. After all, he came on the same helicopter. The injured guy, super humble, even asks Haruto to carry Satoru so he doesn't die. But of course, the kid says there's no way he's leaving his senpai behind. Haruto, amazed by this ride or die loyalty, thinks to himself, these guys would die for each other. I wouldn't die for anyone. Feeling a bit of emotion, he opens his inventory, pulls out a potion, and hands it to the two of them. He says it's not enough for the guy to keep fighting, but at least it'll keep him from dying. The injured guy looks at him like, bro, this potion is super expensive. Haruto just replies, I want to see you get out of here. Take your senpai with you. Satoru is clearly developing a crush now. This guy is a goner. He's all excited, thanking Haruto, introducing himself as Song. And okay, note to self. The new names that pop up stay in Korean, but all the old ones stay in Japanese forever. Haruto couldn't care less. He just starts to walk away, but then he suddenly turns around and asks, hey, have you guys seen the international hunters around here? Because yeah, he knows they're the ones carrying that legendary sword. Meanwhile, with the big bear approaching the truck, Ares holds it off like it's nothing, even putting it to sleep like it's a teddy bear. Grant is impressed that he has so many non-lethal skills. Suddenly, a projectile flies toward them. He reacts instantly and slices it in midair. He mutters that it was only a matter of time before someone tried to steal the sword in the middle of all this chaos. Ares' expression changes immediately. A masked group steps forward, saying he's sharp for noticing, so he better just hand it over. But before Grant can even answer, they attack. Grant blocks and yells that they're not easy targets. There's a reason they were chosen to protect the sword. He tells Ares to fall back, but of course, the guy charges in headfirst. Grant tells him not to do it. Just as we all knew would happen, yep, he freezes mid-attack, falls to his knees, spitting up blood, completely stunned. She has no idea what just happened. Ares explains. They used a potion that blocks mana absorption, which means if she tries to use any skill, she'll die. The masked leader congratulates them, saying they never underestimate their targets. Ares remarks that they must be really desperate if they're using items forbidden by the association. A magic circle glows on her finger, and she says things are about to get very awkward. One of them tries to hit her with a fireball, taunting. A mage with no mana. You might as well die. Bad move. In a second, 30% of his head and shoulder vanishes. Instant KO. The guy drops like a brick. The enemy leader starts to run for the sword, but now his group is getting wrecked, thrown off the bridge, and eaten alive. The masked commander realizes, wait a minute, Ares didn't kill the monster, she only put it to sleep. With no other choice, he runs away, leaving all his comrades dead on the ground. Grant realizes it immediately. They can't put that boss back to sleep. Ares confirms it. There's no mana left to use, and all she did before was just disable its power. Grant mutters that, just as he always said, one day she would die for refusing to use violence. She smiles and replies, that may be true, but you won't. And with that, boom, she dashes forward, activating some kind of final heroic power. "Oh my god." The guy screamed for her to stop, but she kept running straight toward the bear. Obviously, the anti-mana poison was still active. She was coughing up blood the entire way, still pushing forward, but she couldn't absorb anything. And then the monster lunged to strike her with a massive claw. That's when someone hit the cliffhanger button. Just as I wanted to see what would happen, the chapter ended right there. I thought he would give her some mana, so she could put the beast to sleep again, but nope. It turns out he wrapped the boss in a massive web cocoon and slammed it into the ground. I mean, what the hell, bro? That skill of yours is totally broken. The thing looked like a complete mummy now. Once again, Satoru, his companion, was completely shocked, praising our boy and saying that he's incredible. Naruto wanted to get them both out of there as soon as possible, but it wasn't that easy. He asked if they were okay and if they were from the association. Ares looked confused. Maybe she didn't understand the language he was speaking. Gran immediately got up and asked if Gerudo was there to steal the sword. Gerudo, the king of lies, said that of course not. He was naturally there to protect it, but they weren't about to trust a stranger right after being ambushed. Looking around, Gerudo finally got a clear picture of what had happened to everyone chasing that sword. And yeah, if he managed to get out of there without being torn to shreds, it would be a miracle. Then he pulls out his hunter's license and asks why they, the ones who saved him, were being treated like criminals. Naruto was thrilled. Finally, this kid was good for something. Since the timing was perfect, Naruto took out 2 mana potions and offered them. He told them to drink up. They were clearly not in good shape. Those potions cost many dungeon expeditions, but he was willing to risk it to get closer to the sword. The two of them, not having many options, took the potions, hesitated for a moment, and then accepted. Meanwhile, Ares kept her eyes locked on the boss. More ships from the association were flying overhead. Finally, the rest of the guilds were arriving. The muscular guy commented that for now they were fine, but these newcomers would have to deal with a boss that was still there. As he ran across the monster, he shouted that the boss was about to enter Phase 3, and with all the other guilds arriving, their priority was to evacuate all the civilians. Suddenly, someone asked when he would be free to do whatever he wanted. A tattooed guy with glasses called out to Nana. As calm as could be, he said, "How long has it been?" Name Shirosaki Masato, level 503, Dark Mage class. Yeah, this guy is a bit over the top. Nana, poor thing, so sweet and innocent, asked why he was there. He just shrugged and said, "Isn't it obvious?" She told him not to do it, but it was already too late. A huge magic circle had appeared beneath their feet. Even as it was forming, she kept begging him not to do it, because if that spell didn't kill the boss, things were going to get a whole lot worse. The guy said it was precisely because she worried about small things like that she would never get far. He planned to kill that thing by himself and collect a dozen high-level items. Then, boom, a black lightning spell is cast and the boss is engulfed in a storm of energy with flames that drag it upwards. Nana screams for everyone to run, but the ground starts to crumble. The bridge collapses again and everything starts to fall. Haruto shows up looking all innocent. At least he didn't die, so that's something. He even managed to use his spiderweb ability to save the 4 idiots who almost fell. But as soon as he gets up, bam, he's face to face with the boss and its huge teeth. He wonders if it's dead or if someone has already captured it. That's when Shirosaki shows up and tells him that for a low-level hunter, he's done quite a bit. Seeing the emblem on his chest, Haruto realizes instantly. This guy is from the Future Guild, one of the top 3 in the country, and our boy has guts. He even asks Shirosaki why he wasn't helping evacuate the civilians. I thought he was going to get roasted, something like, "And who do you think you are, you insect?" But no, Shirosaki just says that the civilians have already been evacuated and that Kisha doesn't look exactly alive. He walks over to the web and seems genuinely impressed. He didn't expect it to be used that way. Suddenly, all of Haruto's webs dissolve and the bear boss is torn to shreds. Of course, Haruto is terrified because all Shirosaki did was lift a finger. But hey, since Haruto was the one who immobilized it, he starts leveling up like crazy. Plus, he gets a reward for defeating the bear. Shirosaki hears the sounds of him leveling up and asks if he was the one who restrained the creature. He's surprised that Haruto could pull that off. He definitely didn't expect it to be him. Apologizing for the steal, he drops a claw on the ground and says Haruto can have it. He says stealing isn't part of his job. Haruto is about to say something when bam, Nana appears, calling his name. She's all happy, just glad he's not dead. Shirosaki notices that the two of them know each other and assumes Haruto must be from the association, and with every passing second, this guy gets more and more unlikable. Nana wonders if something happened and Haruto just shrugs. Nothing special. Then she asks for his help to move the creature, which leaves him confused. Wouldn't it be easier to just kill it? She explains that once the boss enters Phase 2, it will go completely berserk, rampaging nonstop and, even worse, Given its size, it might have a Phase 3, which would basically mean total city-level destruction. While Haruto processes all this while looking at the monster, the creature opens its eye and stares them down. Nana is scared. Shirosaki, fascinated, says he's finally going to get a better reward. Strangely, Nanase turns and says she thinks Haruto is going to survive, but the guy with the glasses says, "No way, that kid is dead. Focus on the boss." They both charge forward while she yells at Haruto to run. Haruto picks up a horn from the ground and says, "I wasn't planning on doing this, but I guess I have to subdue Quisisha before they do." "Excuse me, my boy suddenly got brave." Satoru, as always, shows up again like a cheerleader. "Why did you come back?" Ares is watching the spiderwebs when Haruto tells her he needs a favor, but the situation is bad. Quisisha is about to enter Phase 3, and, when it does, it will launch an attack towards Ares that could destroy everything. If that happens, not only will a ton of people die, the sword will also be lost. That's why he needs to borrow the sword to finish off the boss and stop all that. He promises to return it right after using it. Well, after copying it, of course. He tries to explain it in 1,000 different ways, but Ares simply says, "It's impossible. You can't open the truck because it requires a huge amount of mana that you don't have right now." Grant gets it instantly. She didn't say it was impossible, because they lack mana. And well, if there's one thing Haruto can do, it's supply mana. He immediately starts flooding her with mana. Ares is all confused, like, "What is this feeling entering me?" "Whoa, easy there, girl. Don't make it weird." With that, the truck's seal breaks easily. Haruto jumps inside, shouting thanks and promising to keep his word. Grant, understandably, is nervous. Either the kid is going to steal the sword or he's going to die with it. Both are bad. Ares, however, believes in him. After all, he immobilized the bear instead of killing it. But Grant says that's not reason enough to trust someone. Finally, Haruto opens the truck door and goes inside to get the legendary sword. But, of course, bam, one of the thieves appears behind him and stabs him in the stomach. His two companions scream from above, while those two level 100 thugs just stand there like NPCs. Our boy collapses inside the truck like trash. The thief opens the box, laughing because he finally got the sword, but when Haruto loses consciousness, his spiderweb ability deactivates. The truck breaks free from the bridge and falls into the river below. The return happens. CTRL+F deactivates, and Haruto reappears right behind the thief without saying a word, just stabbing him hard in the shoulder. The guy drops like a sack of trash. And now the sword is finally in our boy's hands. The first thing he does, of course, is try Control, but error, user level too low to copy this item. I knew something was going to happen. There was no way he could copy a sword. Legendary at level 30. Before Haruto could do anything, the guy who backstabbed him, that one gets up again and stabs him once more. Seriously, bro, this guy has CTRL+C and CTRL+V2. He's regenerating like a damn mutant. What the hell? He reaches for the sword again, and this time it looks like he's going straight for the finishing blow. Haruto, already in agony, starts to wonder if his mana control is still active. Then, a system message pops up. Due to the interaction with the legendary sword, the absorption skill has been copied. It increases defense by 35%, grants life steal, and even has a berserker mode. Since Haruto's health is at 25%, the system automatically activates berserker mode. Meanwhile, up on the bridge, it's charging up another mega attack. Shirosaki and Nanas are struggling. They can't hold it back. And suddenly something flies up from the middle of the bridge and, before the dragon can finish, it gets sliced in half. No way. It had to be our boy. The system confirms it. Quisha defeated. Dungeon cleared. Oh, right. He technically grabbed that sword that gives you plus 230 levels. Sure, he couldn't copy it, but at least he copied the skills. Back at the Hunters Association, everyone is talking about what happened on the bridge. Even though the crisis was resolved in less than 2 hours, the media is full of complaints. A guy named Fuotakuo, president of the Hunters Association of Japan, level 570 and a priest, turns off the TV. He says they'll investigate how Quisha was defeated. Nearby, Takeuchi appears, covered in tattoos like a level 701 anime Mike Tyson. He says of course he's curious, bro. It's like showing up to a party where you don't know anyone and now you have to say hi to everybody. Next to walk in is Shinoda Makoto, level 610, a healer from another guild. Yep, everyone's showing up now. It looks like a war for control over farming that dungeon is about to break out. Technically, it belongs to the Great Sage Guild, the guild of Haruto and Nanaz's team. Speaking of which, look at Nanaz in that suit. The girl is in her full-time businesswoman mode. Then Mr. Tattoo, Tyson walks in with an arrogant air, accusing her guild of failing to control the creature. Nanase sighs and slams her hand on the table. The whole room instantly tenses up. The girl didn't just touch it, she shattered the entire meeting table. Shirosaki even puts up a barrier just so he doesn't get impaled. Everyone looks around like, is this woman okay? Spoiler, she's not. This emotional control is definitely lacking. Now Takeuchi starts to lose his cool too until someone calls his name. It's the association leader. He walks in, asks everyone to calm down, and apologizes on her behalf. Takeuchi says that if Nanase keeps acting like this, she's going to end up dead. Now I'm confused. The guy is level 700 plus and she's barely level 200 something. Looks like levels aren't everything after all. Nanase completely ignores him, stands up, and says that she will personally explain what happened on the bridge. Shirosaki was also there, so he's considered a witness. He says yes, but doesn't confirm much. He didn't see many rewards, so he's not sure how legitimate the victory was. The leader tries to keep things diplomatic, saying that Shirosaki's presence probably helped reduce the damage. Awkward applause. Shirosaki is seething inside. You can tell he's missing a piece of the puzzle, and he's furious. He vows to make Nanase pay for this humiliation and, of course, he wants to get revenge on the one who stole his kill, our boy. Obviously, I have no idea why he's so angry, but Nanase says she'll personally investigate everything that happened in the dungeon. She'll also interrogate all the guilds that delayed sending reinforcements. She turns and leaves like a boss, saying the matter is closed. Just then, Grant and Ares enter the room, saying they have more information about what happened. Grant reports that, due to the chaos, the legendary sword was stolen. They need full cooperation. He hands over a folder, an official request from the International Association. Takeuchi, skeptical, says he heard they were the ones who broke the sword's seal in the first place. Ares explains that it's true. They had help from two hunters, Sano Aruto and Shinoda Satoru. And that's when the chaos starts. Wait, did our boy Aruto steal the sword? With his partner, everyone rushes to find out who the hell this Sano Aruto is. The leader says he knows who Satoru is, but has no idea who this Aruto guy is. Meanwhile, Nanase is biting her tongue. She knows perfectly well who that bastard is, and Shirosaki is right beside her, smirking. He's ready to get his revenge. He asks Ares if he's referring to the guy who used the Spider Queen's web skill. He says he saw the kid fighting during the battle, but he's sure he was part of the association and he definitely saw him talking to Nanase. Scene change. Elsewhere, someone is looking at the sword. This is Kalisha's sword, the one we managed to steal. A guy named Kurosaki Takumi, level 301, is looking at it, completely impressed. So, besides being a sword that gives you 200 levels just for holding it. Oh, so you're level 101? Huh? You sneaky rat. Kurosaki comments that it was worth spending millions to cause that dungeon to collapse and force the boss to appear. Even the masked man seems confused. He caused the whole disaster. Kurosaki wants to know why he lost all his allies in the process. Immediately, the loser gets on his knees, apologizing and saying they ran into some weird guy, but that he's already dead. You can feel it in the air. This poor guy just dropped key information about the incident. There's no way he's getting out of there alive. There's a briefcase full of money on the floor and Kurosaki tells him to take it, to enjoy life however he wants. The guy celebrates as if he's won the lottery, but I bet you every single bill in that briefcase that he's about to be eliminated. Then Kurosaki calmly asks, "You're not thinking of selling information about the sword when you leave here, are you?" The guy jumps up like a spring. "Never. I would never do something like that." He starts backing away, blurting out that the leader is a bastard who planned to kill them all from the start. And just then, slash. Kurosaki cuts him down, saying, "The fewer people who know, the better." He doesn't want anyone knocking on his door. Apparently, the poor guy slams against the wall and is split in half. So yeah, who's going to cross him now? That's the price you pay. I told you so. And with just that one slash, the sword's durability drops from 10 to 2. What the hell, man? That's at most 4 more cuts. Next scene. An hourglass appears and whispers, "Remember, this was a gift." Suddenly, Haruto wakes up in a bed. Total panic. The mark on his neck burns like fire and he wonders if that curse is acting up again. Then, Chaos Incarnate jumps up and hugs him tightly, saying he thought that he was going to die. He starts rambling on about a huge attack from the ocean that finished off the boss. Another guy in the room, just as wrecked, asks if they were on the bridge. Our boy Haruto is already sick of the conversation. He gets up, says the guy is way too hyper for someone who almost died, and is going to rest. But the guy in the bed comments that, despite appearances, the kid just wanted to help. It turns out it was Satoru who saved Haruto before Nanase and the others arrived. Then Haruto remembers his guild leader is Shinoda Makoto and this kid is Shinoda Satoru, but he dismisses it immediately. There's no way this weakling is related to that guy. Cut to the Hunter Association's office. Nana wonders if Sano Haruto is really dead. Grant confirms it and notes that she doesn't seem very surprised. She just replies, "It's not unusual for a hunter to die." The association leader says they've contacted several guilds to help recover the sword. Ares adds that they'll need high-level hunters because she's already tracked its location. The leader tells Ares that it's impressive. He knew her team was good, but not this good. He didn't expect them to already know where the sword was. She explains that the sword emits a unique energy pattern, something she can detect. Oh, Nanase adds that before all this, no one had any real information on the sword, so it's easy to tell when someone steals it, and that's why they let Sano use it. Ares quickly remembers that the sword only had 10 points of durability and it's already been used, so it could soon break completely and disappear, along with the only clue she has to find her mother, who disappeared 15 years ago. They both are in shock. Nana pulls out a file and says that yes, she's not the only one who's been looking into people's pasts. She knows that Ares has been protecting that sword because it's her only hope of finding her missing mother. Suddenly, Ares stands up. I thought she was going to explode in a rage, but no, she just asks Nanase for help. She says they can't let that sword disappear. Cut to the hallway. Our executive Nanase walks down the halls, deep in thought. She knows those two are hiding something. And, honestly, this whole thing about Hunter Sano dying doesn't make much sense. He didn't seem like the type to give up so easily. That's when Shinoda shows up, asking why she has such a grumpy look on her face. She ignores him. She asks what he's doing there. He says it's time for her to return to the Sage Guild. This guy, I'm almost certain he's the guild master and, definitely, he's related to Satoru. After all, his name is Shinoda Makoto and the kid's is Shinoda Satoru. Nanase replies that the number of dungeons keeps increasing and they're losing hunters non-stop. Meanwhile, the other guilds aren't helping. They're too busy becoming companies and profiting from the fame, and the bridge disaster proved that none of them were ready to act, really mattered. That's why she doesn't plan on going back. There's too much she needs to sort out at the association. So, she lets it go. Besides, there are too many unresolved things here. Dad, wait. What? So she's Satoru's sister and this guy is their father. Now the whole family is involved. The only thing missing is his son-in-law. And hey, I know a certain guy who would fit right in. Makoto just laughs. He tells her not to take it so seriously, but advises her to at least stop by the hospital before heading back. Speaking of hospitals, we're back with Gerudo. My boy is already at level 76. What the hell is he, the king of leveling up? Now he's a little disappointed that he couldn't copy the sword, but the skills he got were more than enough. Especially that Berserker mode saved his life. Not only did it give him a temporary 200 level boost, but the Berserker mode also doubled his stats. That's how he managed to slice through a level 400 monster, and because of that, he received a very interesting reward. It turns out Gerudo absorbed Quisish's shockwave, so the system evolved it, transforming it into a new skill called Resonant Frequency. Oh, and on top of that, his web skill leveled up to level 2, which means that now, when he activates it, he can combine it with Shockwave and Lifesteal at the same time. So yeah, our boy is in the elevator feeling like the king of the world. Not only is he stacking skills, they're syncing up naturally. Oh, wait, check this out. His level 76 plus 2 to 100. Hey, editor, put that status window back on screen for the people. Are you guys seeing it? I hope the editor actually did it. That gremlin better have listened to me. When I said he copied the sword's effect, I thought it was just the skills. But he also copied the 200 level boost, which is why he's walking through the elevator like a level 2 to 176 elite hunter. Then he hears a familiar voice shouting in the hospital lobby. It's Nanis chewing someone out, yelling that they should have evacuated when she warned it was dangerous. Our boy ducks down to hide. He had no idea she could be so terrifying. Besides, what is she doing at the hospital? Ah, it's Satoru who's getting an earful. He even calls her big sis. He blames her for not finishing off the monster properly. That's when Gerudo finally puts the pieces together. Her name is Nanase Shinoda. They're all Shinodas. Damn it. Now it makes sense why the strong guy didn't want Satoru to die and why Nanase tears this guy a new one without hesitation. Then she asks for Sano, wanting to know if he's there. Gerudo obviously hides. He remembers that he pretended to be part of the association when he arrived. Nobody has any idea that he's just a nobody from their guild, a supposed weakling. He tries to sneak away only to bump into someone. Ah, so you survived. Oh, no. It's Grant calling him a sword thief. The worst possible timing. Gerudo was trying to disappear, and now this guy is ready for a rematch. Grant grabs him by the collar and slams him against the wall. Whoa. Calm down, bro. Do you see a sword on him now? But Grant has already figured it all out. He demands to know why Gerudo pretended to be part of the association. Gerudo tries to explain, but Grant cuts him off, accusing him, working with the thieves. And just like that, Haruto realizes, this guy isn't going to listen. Grant pulls a sword from a portal, about to attack. That's when Ares appears, yelling for him to stop, not to use that kind of attack here, but Grant is furious. He says he won't be satisfied until this kid is dead. Wow. Hey Blondie, Haruto might need to do a Control-C on you right now. Resonant frequency activated. Grant's sword shatters instantly. Nanase and Satoru, who are nearby, hear everything, and now Nanase is dumbfounded. Wait, Haruto has Quesisha's ability. Scene change. Now we're on what looks like a damn K-pop stage. A girl is dancing, glistening, sweaty abs. A crowd of fans screaming like crazy. Next scene, she gets into a car. Name: Arita Sarah. Profession: girl group idol. She's also a hunter. They didn't even show us her level. She says goodbye to her idol friends, starts her Ferrari, and drives off. The girls start gossiping. She's rich from a famous family. Where is she going? In a Ferrari. Sarah floors it, takes a sharp turn, and almost crashes into a Jeep. She slams on the brakes, missing it by an inch. Then she leans out the window yelling, "Watch where you're going." The driver gets out of the vehicle. Oh, crap. It's Kurosaki Takumi, the longsword thief. Sarah shuts up immediately. She clearly knows this guy. He drops a sword on her Ferrari like it's a flyer in the mailbox. Good concert, he asks. I hope so, because now we're going to a dungeon. He says if she's willing, things can go back to how they were. No idea what the history is between them, but she's not thrilled to see him at all. Scene changed to the building where Haruto wrecked Grant with a shockwave. Too bad, it's completely empty now. They were too late. Nanis wonders if that means they'll have to wait for them to use the sword again to track it. Ares' awkward silence says it all. Yes. Then Haruto shouts, "The bloody tower." It's something the guy who stabbed him muttered while he was unconscious. But no one seems to know what the hell that is. Probably some secret organization in the shadows. Grant starts to get nervous. He says the sword isn't going to last much longer and they're still wasting time. Nanase tells him not to worry. She knows someone who has information on all those shady groups. Scene change. A little girl crawling on the floor got her ability from a strange being 15 years ago. At first, she thought she was just another awakened hunter, but then she realized her ability was much more mysterious. Ready? She has Control-Z. That's right. Undo your mistakes, baby. Now, I just want to know who has Alt, though I guess that only works once. The first thing she did, she started buying piles of old junk and restoring it to resell. Even though it wasn't technically a healing ability, she was making a fortune just by repairing things for people. Okay, I get it now. Her ability isn't healing. It's more like rewinding people or things to a previous state. Makes sense, but now I'm wondering, does it have a limit? What exactly happens when she uses it? The girl was doing everything she could to earn money. Her parents were in the hospital or in critical condition. She tried to restore them to their original state, but the problem was she needed a lot more mana. With what she had now, it was the best she could do. Was heal minor wounds. That's why she started trying to increase her mana by entering dungeons as a porter, and when people got hurt, she would pretend to be a healer too. But the thing is, people who awaken with a talent and not as true hunters have a much harder time surviving in dungeons. She asks a guy, basically a knockoff Gojo, for some mana and he says, "Why are you always begging?" Obviously, being a girl alone in dungeons attracts shady guys who were always trying to pull something. They didn't expect her to split them in half. Then someone walks in and says, "Well, that's interesting. None other than the serpent in the flesh, Kurosaki Takumi." And yep, it's definitely Arita Sarah, the idol from before. She's throwing gifts all over her house like it's Christmas and asking what happened to all the money she earns. He says her place is pathetic. Bro has a mountain of champagne bottles behind him and is eating sushi from a delivery app. Relatable. I'm poor too. Kurosaki criticizes her, saying it's weird for an idol like her to eat takeout 3 times a day. Then, of course, he answers his own question. She eats whatever she wants and when she gains weight, she just uses magic control and gets hot again. He figured she was always like that. After all, the day someone was dying in front of her, she stole their shield to sell it. He's convinced she's just like him, and, once again, she doesn't look at all happy about having to deal with this guy. She tells him she doesn't care what the job is, but she wants to know why it has to be a dungeon this time. Why doesn't he just bring her the mana like always? That's when he pulls out Kalish's sword and says he needs her to use magic control on it, but obviously the mana cost is insane. He tells her not to worry, that this will be her last dungeon. Surprised, Arita asks if he finally found the infinite mana generating item. He says no, but that there's a good chance that something like it will appear and asks her to go with him one last time. Honestly, it sounds more like he's going to repair that sword and die. Cut to the future world. Our boy Judo and Nana are there, and he finds it strange how these people seem to know more than the top guilds themselves. Nana explains, When it comes to knowing about dungeons and wanting to close them, nobody has better information than this guy. Inside the meeting room is Shirosaki Maso. Yep, the smug guy with the scar and glasses in the flesh. And he's talking about, you guessed it, the rumored generator of infinite mana. Apparently, in this world, infinite mana is just another Tuesday, like that old broken normal code. Nana tells herself that, as far as she knows, that item sometimes appears as a reward in the Snowy Mountain Golem dungeon, but the boss there is extremely hard to beat. Shirosaki says, yes, he knows, that's why they're mobilizing a full team to get more information, and during that search, they ran into a group called the Bloody Tower. He'd never heard of them, but apparently they're also after the same Snowy Golem dungeon. At first glance, they seem like a regular team, but they're much worse than expected. They kill, murder, and rob other dungeon teams. For Judo, an infinite mana item is useless, unlike literally everyone else in the world. What he doesn't understand is how this connects to the sword, because they're after the golem. Maybe they want to use the sword to kill the boss, but the sword's durability is low and he's sure it's more valuable than any mana item. Nana wonders if the Blood Tower group has already found the boss, otherwise, why would they be on the move? Ares chimes in, not even close. That dungeon was discovered 15 years ago and still no one has found the item. Gerudo is about to ask how she knows, but she cuts him off with an "I'll explain, don't worry." She's been researching this for a long time and the Snowy Mountain dungeon is notorious. It's one of the toughest. Most hunters simply refuse to go in. Shirosaki adds that those kinds of places are exactly where killer groups love to lure victims, and he's sure that something is being hidden in there. Haruto asks when these guys are supposed to make their move. Turns out, very soon, they've just finished recruiting. Just as Haruto suspected, they've been planning this for a while. Nana tells herself that if that's the case, then they have to move fast. She asks Shirosaki if he has a strike team ready to go. With one hand on his chest, he says, absolutely not. Nana insists, saying she knows perfectly well that the future guild always keeps a reserve team for emergency dungeons, which is why he showed up at the bridge that day. Shirosaki, somewhat uncomfortable, admits that she has a lot of information, but not all of it is accurate. The truth is that he doesn't have a team ready to enter a place like that on such short notice. It's not just any dungeon, it's the infamous Snowy Mountain filled with golems. Although to be honest, the golems are only level 40. It doesn't sound that scary. Still, Shirosaki is already there with a full team. And who's in charge? Our boy, Haruto. The team moves forward, crushing golems only for them to regenerate immediately and counterattack. Shirosaki grumbles, this is why I hate these kinds of places. And out of nowhere, a guy who looks like a ghetto Harry Potter shows up, pulls out his wand, and gathers all the golems into a single spot, splits them, and sends them flying. Red gem fragments start raining down. Those are the cores, he yells. Destroy the cores. That's how you really kill a golem. Oscar, whoever that is, starts to pound the ground, praising him like a savior. Meanwhile, Haruto is just standing there with his little sword doing nothing. A little earlier, Ares had explained that once inside the dungeon, they had to kill the largest possible number of golems. That was the requirement to activate the mini-boss. She discovered that this type of dungeon is called an induction dungeon. Haruto, and let's be honest, we don't either, has no idea what that means. Kurosaki chimes in, of course, saying he hates these too. Basically, it's a dungeon within another dungeon. In a normal hunt, you can skip the weak zones and go straight to the boss to save time, but in induction dungeons, you have to clear each section to unlock the next one, and if you fail just once, you lose access to the rest. Ares adds that 15 years ago, someone made a mistake and caused a break inside this dungeon. Since then, nobody really knows what's hidden here or if anything appears. That's why you don't just have to kill the golems, you have to kill them fast, because their rival team is also looking for the key, and they have to get ahead of them. Back in the action, Gerudo is feeling confident now that he has the sword. Gerudo activates CTRL+B with his web skill and boom, a golem gets completely shattered. Everyone stares at him, like, is he for real? That guy just used a boss skill. Even Ares is freezing golems with ice spells, while Moore finishes them off. Another golem goes straight for the poor side characters. Yeah, they're done for, but then she shows up. She doesn't even throw a punch, just arrives to pose. Then she touches her hand and activates the shockwave of Quisisha. Wait a minute, she has that skill too. Gerudo was supposed to be the special one. She checks on everyone. Are they okay? They all nod, but among the group she spots someone trying and failing to hide his face. She calls him by his name. And yep, it's Satoru again. Here comes the chaos, Gremlin. He tries to defend himself by saying that he's officially part of Gerudo's party now. That's why he's here. Wait, when did Gerudo get a whole party? Flashback to the hospital. When Gerudo said he was going to the dungeon, Satoru threw a full-on tantrum, screaming that He wanted to go on one last hunt with Senpai. He wouldn't let him go alone. As soon as Gerudo agreed, the guy lit up like a shoujo character. But Gerudo made him promise, if he wanted to come, it had to be as part of his party. Back to the dungeon. Nanase has no idea what Gerudo is thinking. Satoru tells her she should respect Senpai more. To her face, he blurts out, I saw it with my own two eyes. The one who split Quisa in two was Gerudo. Nanase starts to think, maybe, he's right. Since the last time they saw each other, Gerudo really does seem stronger and those webs of his now explode just like Quisa's skills. Maybe the story makes sense, but the question is how. Meanwhile, at another point in the dungeon, the odd couple, K-pop idol, Arita Sarah and our charming sword thief, Kurosaki Takumi, are sitting on a mountain ledge watching everyone suffer down below. Their whole party is nearby, pretending to be another raid team, waiting for the perfect moment to swoop in and cause chaos. The problem is there are two high-level hunters among the main group, so getting close isn't exactly an option. But as long as they don't get too close, they could pull off their plan. Kurosaki reminds everyone, efficiency is the core of our guild. He then turns to Arita asking if she's gathered enough mana yet. Apparently, those mana-charging devices he gave her are ridiculously expensive. Filling one requires killing over 100 monsters. That dungeon break on the bridge, yeah, he caused it by overloading tons of those gadgets. Arita is only worried about one thing. How many more do we need to restore the sword? He replies, at least 20. She says, so, we're just going to sit here and hide until then. He confirms, that's the plan, especially because the next part of the dungeon is protected by a barrier that can only be cut with a Kalisha dragon sword. Arita is suspicious. And where exactly did you learn that? He tells her to stop asking questions. He's not going to give her details. She sighs. She says his plans are always weird, but after an icy glare from Kurosaki, she apologizes immediately. She says she was just kidding, and as long as there's a contract, she doesn't care what he does. Obviously, her real goal is the infinite mana item so she can finally restore her mother and father. Back in the heat of the battle, our boy Haruto mentions they've already defeated over 200 golems, and yet, it doesn't feel like they've made much progress. Another core drops from an ogre, and he picks it up, but this one feels different and, strangely, it just slips out of his hand and falls to the ground on its own. That's when Shirosaki steps in and says that the process has begun. They finished the first subjugation phase, now it's on to the second zone. Time to face the Snowy Mountains mini-boss, the Shifting Golem, level 150. A massive monstrosity bursts in and throws half the team around like they owe it money. Shirosaki orders a full retreat. The creature shatters on impact, but, come on, it's called the Shifting Golem. We know it's coming back, and sure enough, within seconds, it reforms and attacks again. Shirosaki lands another hit, but every time the thing shatters, its core escapes, hides in another area, and forms a new body around itself. Then, Haruto gets an idea. Try to stop the core's movement with his spider web. He hits CTRL+B and scores a direct hit. He traps the golem right as it's regenerating. Nope, the golem easily reassembles itself. The spider web was useless. Now they have to find a way to destroy it before the pieces can rejoin. Someone yells for Haruto to get out of the way, and as he turns, Nana lunges forward. A huge blue explosion straight to the golem's chest. But, once again, the golem barely flinches. Physical attacks, magic attacks, it doesn't care. Nana says they'll have to combine their attacks and Shirosaki replies, yeah, no kidding. Now, Haruto is starting to understand why everyone avoids this dungeon. Ares had already warned him. This mini-boss is the real danger, and, since it's an induction dungeon, they can't skip it. Worse yet, the core is absorbing the corpses of the fallen golems, making its health practically infinite. Shirosaki explains, you're not just fighting this boss, you're fighting everything you've already killed. The time and effort required is what makes most hunters want nothing to do with this place, but of course, they have no choice. To get to the final boss, this one has to fall first. Nana says they have two options. Destroy the core or erase everything they've killed so far. Back in the battle, the boss is surrounded by blue flames and, from the bead of sweat on Nana's forehead, things aren't going well. The monster starts to rebuild itself behind her again. She barely turns in time to cast another Hellfire spell. Haruto wants to help, but if he uses the powers of the sword, Ares, who knows all about it, will notice immediately, and he's being careful. No one in this world can know about his control and his trump card. Then he remembers, he still has the item from the bridge bear. Its first skill, temporarily immobilize the target. Second skill, cause damage over time. He hits CTRL+C, CTRL+U on that thing, and, even better, he combines it with his spider web. Now, The spider web not only releases a shockwave, it also immobilizes enemies with the gripping strength of a bear. And what's more, the bear's second skill drains mana and HP, charging forward, finally ready to do some real damage. Meanwhile, Nanas is standing alone in a field of fire. Grant watches her in awe, wondering if she's really trying to melt every piece of the golem. And yet, once again, the thing starts to reassemble behind her. She unleashes another massive flame attack. Seriously, where does she get so much mana? But the golem just walks through the fire and prepares a monstrous punch. It looks like she's finally running out of mana. But when a waifu is in danger, it's time for heroes. Haruto steps in, wrapping the monster in a cocoon with all his might. Even Nanase and Shirosaki are stunned. The guy just immobilized a mini-boss like it was nothing. Nanase snaps out of it and yells at him to stop posing and attack already. That's when Haruto reveals he's found a way to keep the core from escaping. Shirosaki decides not to argue, just muttering, "Fine, but you're going to pay for ordering me around." Then she casts another huge flame spell and the golem starts to disintegrate and, just then, the core reveals itself. Haruto activates CTRL+V. It's web time, but this time, combined with the bear's claws, the web doesn't just trap it, it transforms into a mouthful of teeth that bites down and locks the core in place. Shirosaki recognizes it instantly. It's the bear's useless skill, but somehow Haruto turned it into something incredibly effective. Nanase starts connecting the dots. He had the Spider Queen's skills, he was there with that other guy, he also fought on the bridge during the battle against Quisha. She's starting to suspect. It's him, the troll control guy. But instead of that, she's just glad he always shows up when they need him. Even Ares praises him and suddenly the whole team is motivated. They finally have a chance to destroy the core. However, the one who was nearby and not at all happy about it was none other than Kurosaki Takumi's bootlicker. Even Arita was confused, wondering how that kid managed to stop the core's movement. The problem was that they needed it to keep fighting to continue accumulating mana there. So, Shinoda announced they would have to deviate from the plan and everyone should get into position. Bro, the mask group was sneaking up behind everyone and no one noticed a thing. Arita asked if he really needed to get involved personally. He replied that with that weird kid blocking the core's movement, things had become a bit more complicated. While Arita was surrounded by mana containers, Satoru was approaching and watching everything unfold. He noticed that the guy who seemed to be the leader was gone, but what was he supposed to do? And then there was the question of why that girl was there and why she had so much mana stored up. Now we see why that scumbag was invisible. Just before entering the dungeon, Haruto had given him an item saying it helped with camouflage. He was supposed to fight as little as possible and, when the opportunity arose, turn invisible and hunt the enemy who was probably also there. Back in the dungeon, Satoru was feeling confident, especially since our protagonist had Shirosaki and Nanase by his side. In fact, I saw the picture and thought that's what he was going to say. But the guy trusted Gerudo so much that he only considered the three of them equals, the two guild leaders. Didn't care that he was the one who was going to finish everything, since he had already captured someone. He gave the greedy guy a free pass and then, just like that, he delivered a sword to the core, which exploded. With that, the damn shifting golem was destroyed. The bastard was immediately flooded with level-ups and, of course, he received the most important thing, the key to the sealed heart, which granted access to the next hidden part of the dungeon. Grant tells Eris that he's now closer to seeing his mother. This guy is thrilled, even though he only got a tiny key. Calm down. She replies with exactly that, saying the real challenge was just beginning. Meanwhile, our boy Gerudo is more interested in checking his status window. He went up 9 more levels and, naturally, all his stats increased. If he activates the sword's power, he should be as strong as someone at level 285. In no time, he'd become a hunter capable of farming on his own. He's celebrating like an idiot while emptying his bag and wondering if he's lost his mind. To him, it was ridiculous that someone would celebrate so much after defeating an average boss like that. But Nana answered herself. Sure, you complain that he's celebrating, but he was starving to kill that beast. He tries to say it was only a matter of time before he finished them off, when suddenly something appears behind him. Not just behind him, pillars rise up around everyone. Apparently, it was some kind of bomb that hunters plant to kill monsters. But now, bro, it was being used against them and just then Shirosaki told everyone to get down. The whole place exploded. Bro, that was like an atomic bomb. What the hell? Wow, those little hunters were already all squashed on the ground. Poor things. Someone could just hit Ctrl+Z, right? That would be so convenient. Walking among the bodies, Kurosaki said it had cost a fortune to prepare all that. If he ignored the cruelty, it really was the most efficient solution. But then, suddenly, someone shouted that they had found him from the spiderweb coming in their direction. You know who it is, bro. Haruto launched himself with everything, charging head-on into combat. Just then, he recognized that freaking Kalicious sword. But of course, as usual, he ended up taking a direct hit to the chest, especially since he had that Control-C trick to use, so why not take the risk? A full blow to the stomach sent him flying into the wall. Nana got up again and called out to Sano. Upon seeing that, the guy didn't hold back. He also unleashed an inferno on him. The entire area was wiped out and now she's the one spitting up blood. My god, she really used that much mana. Where's our K-pop idol? Someone hit Control-Z. I mean, she's the enemy. But with all that raw talent, we all know she's going to join our side before long. Kurosaki was about to use a recovery skill to help her, but Ares quickly told him not to. Once again, the enemy was using that play, using that thing that prevents absorbing or using mana without suffering the consequences. Then a shadowy space appeared and Kurosaki moved away from Haruto. At that moment, Shirasaki recognized it as a forbidden skill, a camouflage power so dangerous that the association doesn't allow hunters to use it. The little thug looked at the ground and saw our guy's sword, lying there. The moment he touched it, ownership of the item became his. Thinking about it, that's exactly how things work. If you pick something up, it's yours. The whole setting was so focused on making everything feel like a video game that it had come full circle. The guy celebrated his victory, but then he grabbed our protagonist, insisting that he couldn't let that variable live. Even as he was being choked, Haruto agreed, saying that he thought the exact same thing. He activated his spiderweb skill once more, saying that he loves it when the villain is as evil as that. Along with the spiderweb, he activated his bear hug move, leaving the guy stunned and crushed. A sort of cocoon full of teeth formed around him and all his invisible allies were wondering how they were going to break it. But Haruto kept moving forward, warning him that he would regret stealing that sword. Haruto then dissolved the web to launch his final attack, but the guy had disappeared. Kurosaki appeared, suddenly from behind, saying that he had been scared for a second. Without that shadow nearby, he would have been finished by such a useless skill. It was then that he finally understood the despair that high-level hunters must feel when they couldn't understand what was happening. Haruto then told the guy to calm down, and asked if he didn't even know his own nickname. The mana delivery man, right? It was the first time he had tried sending mana so far, but apparently it worked. At that moment, the fool felt the pressure. Kurosaki admitted he had no idea what had happened, but he was suddenly overflowing with mana and ready to get his revenge on that bastard. A pentagram of energy appeared in the sky, and Kurosaki knew that if he took that attack, he wouldn't even come close to surviving. He immediately ordered his usability to be deactivated, and then here comes the bastard, hitting Control-Z as all the stored mana began to disperse. With that, the Mountain Golem dungeon would be reinstated and reset. Wow, bro, how does that even work? Is time going to rewind? I doubt it. It's nothing like that. It just starts reassembling the golem's stones, and of course, the creatures will reappear from scratch. At that very moment, the first golem charged in to hit Kurosaki. The problem was that he was still under the effect of that gas that prevented mana absorption. All the mana he had was what our guy had given him, and the worst part was that he had to keep those barriers active until everyone woke up. Then, looking back, he saw Nene's hitting the boss once again. A little confused, he learned from her that apparently he didn't even know Haruto's nickname, the mana delivery man. That sly dog. Ares, standing right next to him, commented that the boy's ability seemed to be the power to distribute infinite mana to his allies, but Shirasaki found that very strange. This type of mana distribution should be exclusive to a priest. Besides, a female hunter of the Nane's level would require absurd amounts of mana. Not just anyone could supply it to her. And it wasn't just her, everyone was fighting, which made no sense, unless he was really capable of generating infinite mana. I didn't even know such a unique skill existed. If it were true, having Haruto in the guild would be much better than constantly hunting that infinite mana golem. It doesn't make sense to a certain extent, but it's still baffling. Since no one seems desperate for mana, except when they're running out, then they do need it. Then, Nanase explained everything. Everything that happened on that bridge was the work of that damned Bloody Tower guild. Grant agreed, but pointed out that the dungeon had now been reset and this could happen again. However, Ares insisted that it wasn't that easy to reset the dungeon. Otherwise, they wouldn't have waited until such a crucial moment. At least with this reset, she was sure that the probability of the secret dungeon appearing had increased drastically. Nanase, on the other hand, believes something isn't right. There were far fewer golems this time. Shirasaki immediately noticed that the ones she melted with the blue flames weren't coming back to life, and now they were both worried about our dear Haruto, fearing he might have been killed. Finally, people are starting to worry about our boy. He's out there all battered, hating himself for letting that guy escape. As soon as the dungeon reset, Haruto charged head-on, but the guy easily defended himself, warning that a low-level hunter like him wouldn't stand a chance. Still, Haruto just grabbed his hand and activated a web that left it immobilized. Enraged, the guy struggled to break free, screaming that the bastard was like a disgusting insect. Then, an explosion erupted beneath them. Kurosaki had unleashed the power of his sword. A second later, Haruto found himself lying on a pile of snow, and when he looked around, no one was in sight. Meanwhile, at the Hunters Association, two guys on the right were saying there was nothing to worry about because Master Shirosaki was with a group. The one with the goatee replied that the biggest problem now was how they were going to handle this so-called bloody tower, since they didn't have much information. The guy in the black suit slammed a tablet on the table and said that the Midas Guild had discovered a few things. Aokshi then explained that these guys were so confident thanks to the involvement of an international guild called Starfield. Both men were surprised. The one with the goatee even asked why a guild as big as that would try to make moves in a place as small as Japan. The bald guy added that was precisely what scared him. Whatever it was, what was happening in that dungeon was huge. 15 years ago, when the accident happened, that same dungeon exploded, and a bunch of golems started roaming the city. Back then, one of the most powerful priestesses in the world, Nishi Haradamoka, managed to seal them again. I mean, I even wrote down her name just to find out in the next panel that she was already dead. What a shame. Takeuchi then commented that the item sealed in the dungeon was really strange, as it was attracting people from other countries. He also mentioned that Nishihara's daughter was involved in all of this. And yes, we all know her. Our beloved Ares. At least she believes her mother is still alive. The guy with the sideburns asked if she was after the sword or if she was only interested in knowing about her mother's death. It was then that the bald guy explained that Nishihara's death was never confirmed, leaving everyone confused. All these people had been declared dead. So, what was this uncertainty? He continued, saying that a hunter came out of that dungeon just 5 years ago and saw Nishihara there, coming from her own territory. The problem is that Starfield hasn't revealed much more than that. All he knows is that a lot is happening in there. Just as he was about to speak, someone burst through the door announcing they were in trouble. The chairman ordered him to quickly explain what was so important to stop the meeting. He pressed a remote and reported that a dungeon break was happening. Behind a car, someone sent a message saying that they needed help. A bunch of golems had suddenly appeared in the city and were roaming everywhere. Everyone in the meeting jumped up in alarm. Takuchi knew that those were precisely the creatures they were supposed to hunt in the snow. Inside the dungeon, Kurosaki was still totally beaten up. Arita asked if things were going to be okay. It was the first time she'd seen him so badly injured. He told her to see for herself. Finally, they had found the hidden heart of the mountain. Just beyond the bridge, there was the secret entrance. Arita got excited. She was finally going to get the heart of a giant golem. Her team advanced across the bridge, but Satoru was nearby, invisible, watching everything unfold. He never imagined these guys would actually find something like that. One of the masked men reached out and felt a strange barrier, alerting the boss that something was blocking the way. Kurosaki reached out, thinking that those damn guys from Starfield really had all the information. This was definitely the place that had been sealed 15 years ago by the great Nishihara Tomoka. He then warned everyone to get ready to break the barrier, but asked them not to get distracted. That led Arita to use all her mana capsules to revert the sword's state. Then, deadenly, he looked back and said there was a rat nearby. He aimed the sword toward the bridge and commented that it was audacious, while his guild quickly tried to use stealth. Satoru suddenly realized they were screwed, and then Kurosaki launched a slash at him. The scene changed to another nearby area. A rabbit was hopping around, when out of nowhere a small golem appeared and pierced it. The golem took the creature's crystal and began to consume it. Wow. Suddenly, our boy had gotten himself a golem pet. Where'd you get that, man? Well, it looked like he was feeding the creature with human crystals so it could multiply infinitely. Then, when he touched that golem's core, he obviously copied and acquired its abilities. He could create a golem of level 1 and even a level 1 golem armor. On top of that, he could share vision and hearing with the golem to see what he was doing. The only problem was that he couldn't absorb those skills through a simple copy and paste, but the item itself was enough. Even better, he could copy the core itself, which would allow him to clear an entire dungeon by himself. At level 1, it was already this great. Imagine what it would be like at level 10. But then, out of nowhere, the golem moved to the side. When Gerudo looked, it was Satoru running in a panic. He immediately hugged him and wrapped his legs around him, saying he was scared of dying. There wasn't even an epic reunion. They were already running back as Satoru explained that he had found the secret dungeon. It seems that when Kurosaki launched his attack, one of the guys from the future guild was involved. In other words, Kurosaki, the tattooed guy, had the same idea as him, to leave someone watching invisibly. Satoru then mentioned that there was a girl with them. For some strange reason, she was loaded with mana machines and had started a process. He thought about stopping her just as Gerudo had ordered, but he got so scared that he ran off. Our boy said everything was fine, the information was enough. Then, Satoru said he saw something very familiar, but before he could explain what, he asked why there was a small golem following them. Gerudo replied not to worry, that it was just his subordinate. The fool stood there thinking it was very cute. In the next scene, they were already on the bridge outside the dungeon looking for Kurosaki. The protagonist told Satoru to go find the other two while he waited there. He felt unsure, but the protagonist reassured him, saying he had a small golem to watch everything around him. Satoru didn't have much of a choice, and our boy even handed him the golem's core. That way he could have his own subordinate, which although it looked weak, it actually had a solid attack. The guy was totally thrilled to have received such an expensive item. It wasn't like he had given him the original. He kept all the copies he had made. Gerudo was starting to like that rascal. Even though he was already a rich guy, a billionaire, a trillionaire, he was actually quite simple. With that, Gerudo activated the golem's core once more. When the skill activated, and I hadn't mentioned it before, it said the golem would take whatever form he imagined. That's why this time he made it look like a little bird and, with their senses shared, he could easily watch everything they were doing. Shortly after, he saw the girl holding the sword and realized she was the one Satoru had mentioned. The problem was what was happening with that sword and why there was so much mana floating around. Arita activated her Control-Z skill and a huge blast of energy began to flow into the sword, and bro, its durability went from 6% to 100%. Seriously, that Control-Z is totally broken. I thought it was just a small recovery, but it completely reset the sword. Completely. She was left completely exhausted and Kurosaki thanked her for restoring its durability to the max. You'd better be careful, girl. Now that you're no longer useful, that sword is going to cut off your head. Hearing all this, Gerudo realized that a skill to restore a sword like that shouldn't exist. Maybe she was like him, a person who instead of having a skill has a gift or a curse. And that bastard was already planning to copy her talent, although it probably wouldn't be easy to kill her husband. That's when he wondered, could he really copy someone else's skill? First, he thought about trying it on someone, but more importantly, he wanted to make that girl an ally. Kurosaki then celebrated, saying that the time had finally come to take down the barrier of this place. Without much difficulty, he inserted the chalice sword and a bunch of chains began to break. A huge circle appeared and a strong gust of wind blew, while our guy watched everything from afar. He knew that was the barrier preventing anyone from entering. Kurosaki continued to celebrate that without the key in Starfield's information, there would be no way to get there. Only that sword could break the barrier created by Nishihara. Arita asked him to explain why. He explained that the true owner of that sword back in the day was Nishihara's husband, known as Frederick Huge. He disappeared in this dungeon 15 years ago, and that's when she sealed the entire place, leaving only the sword with the power to destroy it so he could return. So many details our guy had no idea about. He even recognized the name Frederick. The guy was considered a sword god back then, and apparently, the family of Ares was much more important than he had ever imagined. Then, the little thug said he was tired of talking and that it was time to break it. With the sword firmly planted, he activated a level booster. The entire area was bathed in golden light, blinding everyone and even destroying the nearby golems. Now it made sense why they had to restore the durability. There was no way that 6% would have been enough. Finally, the barrier began to crumble. Kurosaki celebrated, saying he never imagined it was nothing more than a hologram. Now it was time to enter that place and find the golem's heart after all these years. The problem was that thanks to Haruto, he didn't know whether to wait for the others or go after them alone. Meanwhile, in southern Italy, in an S-rank dungeon, bro, the image of a hunter being torn to pieces on the ground was incredible. As he lay there in agony, the guy muttered that just killing him would have been enough. So, why kill everyone? The guy with the white gloves replied that if only he died, they would label him a murderer, but if everyone died, it would just be called a dungeon accident. I mean, with a snap of his fingers, he vaporized that guy. What the hell? Another control skill. This guy has a Control-A. When someone dies, their skills are transferred to the nearest person who can use them. Yeah, considering Control-A is like Select All, it makes sense, right? He cuts the guy's neck and you can see he has a stunner similar to Yudo's. What the hell? Now he used Control-A to select everyone, then Control-X to cut the chosen targets. It seemed like he created some kind of spatial crater and everyone just disappeared. Then he senses someone approaching and when he turns around, it's an elf or maybe an elf. I'm not sure. I know that person praises his Control-A, saying that it's evolving more and more. He replies that he hates how this ability forces him to kill people to steal their cursed skills. Oh, So he's stealing all the Scotterel? Huh. Damn. Our protagonist better be careful. If word gets out that there's a king of Control-C out there, they're going to start hunting him. The elf is wearing a skirt, but I'm not sure if I can trust her yet. Guys, these authors have been tricking me a lot lately. I'm getting pretty suspicious. The elf says that the only skill you can copy without killing is the famous Control-C. The boss replies that they've been looking for that bastard for a long time, but they have no idea where he is. Maybe Control-C doesn't even exist. I'm telling you, I think it might be a man, bros. Ah, you sly author. You really thought you were going to fool me. Huh, I'm tough, bro. Then, he explains that a person with Control-C existed in his dimension, so one must exist in this one too. Then one asks, where's Control-F? And another wonders, what happened to Control-Z? Bro, there are too many controls. At that moment, they mention that the barrier Nishihara had created has just been broken. Control-Z was important, but even more crucial was getting the golem's heart, an essential item for using those cursed skills to their full potential. Back in the dungeon, we see Shirosaki arrive. It seems they ran all the way there, but they didn't find anyone. It looks like our dear Haruto went back and called everyone. Right, kid? Ready? Let's be honest. If I were alone against that guy again, I'd be in even bigger trouble. There was only one path, so I knew the best move was to push forward. Nanase has no idea who's behind all this, and Ares says that as far as he knows, it could be Starfield's doing. Nanase gets scared, asking why Starfield would get involved in something like this. The #1 international guild shouldn't be messing with a bloody tower guild. Ares mentions that he thinks his mother is the reason for all this. As Haruto listens to all these details, he starts to realize that ever since the bridge was destroyed, everything has been leading to this moment. He looks at Ares and starts to wonder if the real target wasn't the key at all, but her. Could be. How did you reach that conclusion, Einstein? I still can't see that possibility. At least Shirosaki knows what's more important and tells everyone to start running again because they have to catch those guys. Instead of just speculating, they should capture that bastard and force him to spill everything. Meanwhile, Satoru runs with his little golem and Shirosaki asks what that's all about. When Satoru says it's a minion he got from our dear Haruto, the guy looks a little confused. Nanis then asks the protagonist why he handed something so valuable to her. He replies, it's good to leave valuable things with someone who has money, right? If the kid loses it, he'll get it back. She smiles a little, like she always does whenever our boy says something, and suddenly, Satoru steps on something. Out of nowhere, a magic circle appears under him and Shirosaki. Haruto runs in their direction. Meanwhile, Nanase enters the shadow, calling out, doing the same thing, and boom. Obviously, another circle activates under those two clowns. They also fall to the ground, and upon getting up, they call out again. Shirosaki and Satoru. Strangely, they couldn't see anything around them. They seemed to be in a forest. Looking to one side, Haruto sees a giant dragon in front of him. The beast was about to bite, and he had no idea where it had come from. At least Nana reacted quickly, launching an attack that cut off the monster's head. The head fell to the ground, and the protagonist wondered why there was a dinosaur-like monster in this mountain dungeon. At that moment, Ares warned that the place seemed to be a completely different world. It was probably a multi-dimensional dungeon. Wow, guys, they really ended up in a gigantic forest. Nana says that's impossible. As far as she knows, all multi-dimensional dungeons disappeared 15 years ago. Ares agrees, since it was his mother who sealed all those dungeons 15 years ago, but those magic circles that appeared beneath them must have been used to connect them to this other dimension. That's exactly how the creatures also invade their world. Nana then understood why that dungeon had been sealed. However, Haruto already knew that Satoru and Shirosaki must have also been sent to another dimension. Probably their next step is to clear this dungeon so they can return to the golem one. He then unsheathes his sword and says that if they have no other choice, they'd better act fast. The problem was that a dozen dinosaurs were already heading their way. I just noticed that the Fool Gran was also dragged along. He only just now appeared. Meanwhile, the entire city was in flames. The golems, which were supposed to be in the dungeon, were wreaking havoc all over Japan. The hunters were getting tired of trying to fight back. Of course, that boss that rebuilds itself is right there and they can't kill it. They call for an area attack, but the fisherman mage warns that he's out of mana and they'll have to hold on a little longer. The poor hunters are really struggling to keep those low-level golems at bay until one rushes to strike the bald guy. Just then, a flash of light appears, and in comes a stylish blonde guy with a backpack. The fisherman mage is grateful and soon realizes that the guy is a foreigner. He says he's on a business trip, but he couldn't just stand by while people were suffering. The others thank him and are impressed that he also speaks Japanese. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos with the golem, the bald guy comments that he misses the protagonist and his ability to provide mana. The blonde guy overhears this and asks, what's this about someone who can generate infinite mana? To which the bald guy replies that it's nothing special, just a useless person whose only function is to do that kind of thing. Now the blonde guy is really curious and wants to know where to find him. The other guy says he has no idea. Sometimes when he enters a dungeon, he runs into that useless guy. But of course, now the blonde guy is determined to find out who this infinite mana guy is. At first, everyone said he was useless, but now people seem very interested. Then, someone behind the blonde guy exclaims that he has finally arrived. Wow, it's Kyuchi, our beloved and mysterious doctor from the deep web. Looking up at the golems attacking from the sky, they are completely sure that they are the same ones that were supposed to be on the snowy mountain. Shota comments that those guys were the perfect targets for Takeuchi, who runs forward to inform the president that he'll take care of it. Armor activated. Hey, you're clearly inspired by that thing from the Fantastic Four, right? Now it's Golem versus Golem, and the big blue one charges at him. One attack later, the beast is shattered into about 300,000 pieces. A burst of bright magic fills the screen. For a moment, I even thought a magical waifu had appeared, but no, it was just the guy with the goatee conjuring his colorful powers. Then, the giant golem rushes at Takeuchi to throw a punch, but obviously, he wasn't going to lose in a contest of strength. Note that Uchi counters him with a punch on top of the punch and, suddenly, the monster's entire arm disintegrates, exposing its core. He grabs it and smashes it to pieces. This was just a warm-up. The guy finished everything in no time, while our guys suffer for what feels like 30 chapters, so the boss was defeated and the dungeon cleared. Insane. This city invasion wasn't so hard after all. Someone used a Control F on Takeuchi. That's one of those skills to locate other people who apparently have powers. Huckle. And guess who did it? Our cunning blonde boy, who's just taking notes and saying he got some good information. Now he wants to know if Control Z is still active inside the dungeon. At least it's good that she didn't die in there. Yeah, right at this moment she has a hole going through her stomach. At least it's Control Z. I guess she can reset her stomach, but I'm not sure she has enough mana for that. Let's go back about 20 minutes, too, when a bunch of zombies appeared. Kurosaki's group was also transported to another dimension and got trapped with all that zombie madness. While readying his sword, he commented that the problem was they had no idea what would happen after that point, but dealing with those creatures would be ridiculously easy. One slash and the whole area would disintegrate. And then, bam! Their dungeon was finished and they would be transported by the giant golem's heart. The whole team appears in front of a huge door, and one of the masked guys celebrates that they finally found the hidden boss. Without hesitation, Kurosaki takes the key and embeds it in the door. The chamber opens and everyone enters. Whoa, guys, you're surrounded by a bunch of statues with weapons. Somehow, this place looks familiar. They're all just standing there, scraping their swords against the statues as if looking for the boss. Meanwhile, Arita starts to feel an enormous pressure on her body. Strangely, no one else seems to react. One of the masked guys is about to say that it's just for the reward, but something is seen coming from behind. That poor guy gets crushed like an ant and it becomes clear that one of the statues has started to move. The first guy is startled, and suddenly, everyone snaps out of it. Not only was that statue the boss, but every statue in the room was a threat. Arita is acting very strange, crying, even though she's seen plenty of people die before. That confuses Kurosaki. He knows she's seen it all before, so why is she reacting like this now? He orders her to wake up and use her ability before that these guys are finished. She then runs to one of the bodies and rips out one of the mana sources. The problem is that no mana is coming out of those sources. In fact, it seems the mana is being absorbed in another direction. Beside her, she sees other statues massacring the masked men. Kurosaki orders everyone to focus and start attacking instead of just taking hits. He throws a punch at the enormous creature's ribs, making it stagger, and then he orders the rest of the team to start using their high-level minds. One of the masked fighters suddenly reveals that none of their minds or invisibility skills are working. So, look what happens. Another fool gets crushed. In fact, he was struck and sliced at the same time. When Kurosaki looks to the side, the only one still alive is grabbed by the hand and crushed as well. Right in front of him, a pile of bodies was starting to form. He's getting angry, not because people are dying, but because the group's efficiency is plummeting. Now it's his turn, facing 3 enormous brutes in front of him. He orders his Kalishia sword to level up, but the system warns him that he doesn't have enough mana to use its power. He's confused, since he's level 300 and should have more than enough mana, but it's already too late. Apparently, he just became another victim. Meanwhile, Arita, acting on impulse, runs toward the mana source. Apparently, that's the reason why no one has any mana in this place. It's all being absorbed. When she places her hand on it, she immediately sees the giant golem's heart appear. The problem is that that thing is supposed to provide mana, not absorb it. Suddenly, the heart begins to crack and she tries to escape, but it shoots a laser straight into her ribs. She tumbles down the stairs like a piece of crumpled trash and lands face to face with a statue. And damn, these statues don't hesitate. They immediately start attacking with their swords. From her shadow, something begins to emerge. It's Kurosaki, appearing and protecting her as if the villain had become a savior. He even grabs an advanced potion, throws it to her. She catches it, and he takes off running like a Marvel hero. The catch is, the moment she touched the golem's heart, the final boss fight was triggered and the door they came through started to close. He tried to use Shadow Step, but he didn't have enough mana. With no other choice, he did the most human thing possible and ran. But seeing the door, he knew there wouldn't be enough time for both of them to get through. Damn, this villain is doing more saving than our protagonist. He grabbed Arita and threw her outside. The poor girl got up, demanding to know why he did that. He replied that as long as she was alive, she could use her Control-Z and reset everything. But she just stood there, crying, asking if he was an idiot. She's not a hunter and doesn't have enough mana to do that. There's no way she could restore it all. So you can't say he was a hero, because he was just trying to save himself. He knew she would eventually rewind time. Still, I'm used to those villains who would just try to get through the door, leaving both of them trapped. Those types are usually pretty dumb. At least this one is a little smarter. In his mind, Arita was cursing herself for agreeing to come to this place when suddenly something warm started to flow inside her. It was our protagonist Jaruto, channeling an enormous amount of mana into her. When she opened her eyes, she recognized him, immediately. She knew he had done the same for Nana before. Jaruto approached and said that, if she had enough mana, she should be able to restore her own body. That left her confused. How did this guy know about her ability? Meanwhile, the rest of the group was stuck at the door, furious that they had come so far, and still couldn't get in. Ares explained that as long as there was even one person alive inside, nothing could be done from the outside. Shirosaki, as expected, was not happy at all, complaining that they had just wasted their time. Then he looked to the side, asking who that girl was. Someone explained that she was one of the healers from the Bloody Tower team and that thanks to Sano's mana, she managed to recover. Shirosaki didn't care much about that. He just wanted to know if they were going to be trapped and if they wouldn't finish the dungeon. Ares confirmed that was a very real possibility. Then he hit his head with his hand, realizing why so many people had disappeared trying to clear this place. Nearby, Gerudo wondered if he should mention the key. He had already made a copy. That cunning guy. Did you really think he would leave the key intact and not copy it like Control-C, Control-V on everything? He was crouching down, saying he could pretend he had found it lying on the ground. Could it be such a coincidence? With her hand on the door, Ares knew this was something her mother had sealed and she was sure there was something important inside. Suddenly, her hand seemed to pass through it and the entire door began to glow. The place opened up, leaving everyone stunned at how it had happened. Ares explained that the cloak she was wearing was made by her mother and might be resonating with the door. Gerudo already suspected that she was the key to all of this. Suddenly, a dark aura enveloped everyone and Masato wondered, what kind of pressure is this? Nana warned everyone to cover themselves. There's something in that place draining everyone's mana. Gerudo asked Arita if that's what she had mentioned before and she confirmed it. Instead of providing mana, the golem's heart was absorbing it. Now our protagonist is left wondering how to fix this mess. Desperate, Arita said they'd better run. There's nothing a hunter can do against the kind of creatures that are about to appear. At that very moment, golems appeared right in front of Satoru. Nana, already used to being around Gerudo, asked him for the one thing he does best. He assured them not to worry, promising that he will fill everyone's mana in this place. Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V, Control-C, Control-V. Over and over again. Bro, look at all the windows he's spamming. He opened his arms and spread mana everywhere. Arita was instantly confused, not understanding why this was happening. Even though the mana was being absorbed, so much was being generated that it was overflowing the area. She thought that if Gerudo could fill her up a little more, maybe her parents would return with her brother. Then, Nana powered up. This amount of mana was more than enough to finish off those golems. Seriously, a single cut and they were blown to bits. That rowdy kid pulled out his wand and unleashed some thunder, but then even more rocky projectiles flew at the guy with infinite mana. However, it was a piece of cake. He created a giant chain of lightning that shattered the entire dungeon. Arita looked to the side and saw the pathetic body of Kurosaki lying there with his sword to the side, utterly defeated. He was missing an arm, gasping for air, and she didn't know what to do. Just as she was considering maybe saving him, Gerudo approached, gave her a cold look, took his most important sword, left, and cloned it. And at last, he got exactly what he wanted. Now he was convinced that Arita had a skill similar to his, one that he definitely wanted to copy. But first, it was time to test another theory. Gerudo leaned in close to Kurosaki's face and tried to use his Control-C skill to copy the shadow movement. However, the system rejected it, saying the target's level was higher than his. Furthermore, the target was strongly hostile towards him. In that case, he had two options to acquire the skill: either kill the target and steal the skill, or force absorption when the target's HP dropped below 15%, although that would leave the target unable to use their own skill. Either he steals it or he kills him. It's no less brutal than what that guy did earlier. Our boy was sure that guy couldn't be above 15% HP after taking such a beating. This forced absorption might seem harsh, but it will definitely be useful in the future. At that moment, Shirosaki appeared and ordered Erida to heal that guy just enough to get the information they needed, and so he couldn't escape. She was there watching Gerudo. He approached Shirosaki, used his Control-Z, and he started to recover. Gerudo, ever hungry, thought this was even better than the clone that he makes of himself to resurrect, although I'm not so sure about that, since our protagonist can take a stab, die, and come back, whereas if someone else dies, that's it. As soon as Kurosaki woke up, he smiled, saying that he knew the two of them would survive. But then, the cold and calculating K-pop girl turned around and walked away. The fool was already captured, and Nanes warned him that if he tried to run, she would split him in half. He replied that she could only say that once they got out alive, since the dungeon was about to reactivate. In the center of the room, the golem's heart began to glow, and just like that, it shifted to the side. A laser shot towards Nanes, sweeping across the entire room. "Damn it," Satoru shouted in a panic, but more lasers were coming. One was aimed right at that idiot. The protagonist shouted for him, but it was already too late. But wait, guys. The little minion golem has just arrived to intercept. And as always, we jump 30 minutes ahead to see what happened in that dungeon where Shirosaki was. Our beloved Satoru, like our very own tattooed Harry Potter, was shooting lightning bolts from his wand, disintegrating every creature in sight. It was as if he saw humanoid rubble, perfect for his little golem to feed on. Shirosaki even told him to do it, since for him it was useless otherwise. So the little golem started to eat and leveled up to level 2. Satoru was smiling happily until the creature activated a skill that started to wrap around its body. Now, back to the present, there's the bastard with a huge armored golem. The rare sight left everyone stunned that this guy managed to evolve his subordinates so quickly. Meanwhile, Shirosaki was convinced that this was the same skill that Takeuchi used. Suddenly, attacks came flying in, and one even seemed to pierce his stomach. Yeah, he was almost hit in the head. Ares told him to focus because those attacks were made of highly concentrated mana. Not even a magic shield could block them properly. Nanas, ever the brave one, stepped forward and said that's why it was easier to block them physically. "So, watch me headbutt it," he declared, and sure enough, he charged forward and redirected the attack to the other side. Haruto realized that what he said made sense. The mana was so dense that it could alter trajectories. The problem was that they couldn't just stay there. They had to advance instead of just defending. After all, since he was giving everyone infinite mana, that crystal was also draining infinite mana from him. He had to get closer somehow, or everyone would die. Watch as our clever boy activates his shadow skill along with his spider skill using Control-C and Control-V non-stop. He slips into the ground within that spiderweb effect so no one sees him activate it, leaving Gran all confused about where the kid went. Then Haruto appears behind the cube, or rather, in the shadow created by the attack's effect, and immediately attacks its hand, activating the Quasar resonance. Bro, that was not such a good idea. After all, he bounced right off and ended up spitting like 3 liters of blood. And now the kid is acting like a total protagonist, coming back with an arrogant air, as if there's no way he could lose to that bastard using his own mana. He launches another troll owl Kodo, this time activating it along with his spiderweb. Suddenly, the entire heart is surrounded. Finally, all the relentless attacks stop for a few seconds. Everyone starts to celebrate and Haruto smiles. But don't get too excited, this guy isn't done yet. As soon as he sees it wasn't enough, he launches another spiderweb. And this time, as soon as the target is trapped, he activates the Quasar resonance inside the web. Finally, something starts to break. Dude. The cube shatters and he levels up. The entire heart fractures and a bright light starts radiating from nowhere. The system announces, "You have destroyed the golem's heart. The dungeon is complete." Then comes another barrage of level-up windows flashing on the screen. And best of all, bro, he gets a reward. The heart of a giant golem had the ability to generate infinite mana and could absorb nearby mana up to a certain limit. But of all the people in the world, Haruto is the only one who thinks that thing isn't that useful. Still, it doesn't hurt to make a copy, so he decides to store one in his inventory. With that, his Control-C also levels up. Now it automatically copies any item that can be copied. What? As long as something is nearby, you just have to use Control-V, and that's it. I guess that's how it works. Out of nowhere, Soro starts running around showing off how amazing he is, wanting to give him a hug. But then, someone else calls out to Shirosaki, saying that by some miracle, the kid actually got the heart. Satoru is left wondering if they're insulting or praising him. Then, Nanase tells the guy to stop acting like a child. Shirosaki adds that when they get back, he wants to have a little chat with our boy. Haruto just warns, if you want to buy it, the price won't be cheap. Nanase, on the other hand, tells him to save that conversation for when they're back at the association. Shortly after, they meet up with Arita and the captured loser. Satoru approaches Arita and hands her the sword, saying that her mother's treasure has finally returned. She takes it gratefully and says everything is okay. He came back just as he promised. Grant doesn't let anything slide and asks if Haruto had used the Blood Tower Master's shadow ability. Shirosaki chimes in, saying he really saw the kid cover the distance super fast. Haruto tries to make up an excuse, saying that he was excited or all fired up. Apparently, after his atheist skill evolved, he could attach to things from afar and quickly launch himself towards them. But, of course, nobody buys that pathetic excuse. So, Nane shows up to save our boy, telling everyone that it's rude to keep asking about others' skills, and orders everyone to get a move on because they need to investigate those two scoundrels. Meanwhile, Kurosaki turns to Arita and tells her she's going to have to pay for that time he saved her. It was time for her to reset the dungeon. She asks if he's crazy, but he quickly reminds her that she doesn't have many options. She has a contract with him. As long as she wears the bracelet of Adama's deal, she can never betray her partner. In other words, as long as she has it on her arm, she'll be bound to him. Poor Arita is crying. Even though she has a Kroll Z, her life is a mess, and now she's in the hands of that scumbag who's ordering her to reset the dungeon because he risked his life to save her. And even more so, considering there's more than enough mana in the air. Suddenly, all that mana starts to converge on Arita. Satoru immediately senses that something strange is about to happen. She crouches down and slams the ground. Before the dungeon resets, Haruto tries to warn everyone to get out because everything is about to reset. Ares says that doing that would be crazy. They could end up thrown into another dimension again. So Haruto dives into the shadows and goes straight for her. He activates his web skill and asks her why she's doing this. But Arita doesn't say a word, she just sheds a single tear, hits the ground, and goodbye. Or not, Haruto manages to reach her in time and gives her a little tug on the belly. Then, everything explodes everywhere. Blocks go flying, everyone activates their barriers. Suddenly, they find themselves in a blue, disoriented state. What's going on, guys? We're in Minecraft now, and it's time to farm. Next thing you know, they're in another world, a giant portal appears, and they end up in a city that leaves me confused. Apparently, everyone was kicked out of the dungeon and Satoru is screaming our boy's name. They realize they're in the sky over Tokyo, but what the hell is going on? Ares says that obviously, has no idea either. Suddenly, someone calls out to Nanase, and when she looks, it's her father wanting to know what she's doing. Shirosaki is also baffled, asking what Shinoda is up to. I'm the one asking, you know. I'm trying to understand what happened in that dungeon. Also, why only these people? Where is everyone else? Shirosaki grits his teeth, while Nanase can only think about our boy. Barely 5 seconds apart and she already misses him. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, Kurosaki is furious because this damn place didn't reset. Arita explains that Haruto pulled her in the middle of the enchantment, which ended up canceling it. The guy shrugs, saying it's fine, since the others seem to be gone. Besides, the handcuffs disappeared along with them. So, as long as they get the heart, everything is perfect. Of course, Haruto isn't going to allow that so easily. He activates his spiderwebs, but then he wonders, wasn't it supposed to be his Control-C and Control-B that were supposed to locate the item? My god, he mutters. Arita comments that it seems it didn't just reset the dungeon, but him as well. It can't be, he thinks. This is impossible. I'm still here with all my memories in my body. It must be that Nara changed. Still, damn it, now he's at level 1 and that's a total rip-off of his ability. She returned him to the exact state he was in on the first day he awakened. Worst of all, even his Control-C and Control-B skills have reverted to level 1. A system message appears saying that an unconfirmed item was copied and that it is now possible to paste it. But here comes the blow. While he's at level 1, Kurosaki approaches him and stabs a sword into his chest. Still celebrating, Kurosaki taunts him, saying that his idiotic face proves his level must have been reset. It was the perfect opportunity for him to die and disappear. Seeing the sword coming, Haruto has a twisted, desperate, totally protagonist-like idea. You know how he always makes a copy in case he dies, right? Except that when he made that copy, it was theoretically still before the reset. I think that's his plan, at least in his head. But the problem is that when he's about to be killed, Grant intervenes and protects him. Kurosaki then roars that Haruto better get out of there, or else a hunter from the International Association is going to die. Haruto demands to know why he's doing that, and the answer is simply for him to run, warning that Kurosaki will take care of it, so he'd better escape immediately. However, Haruto insists there's no way he's doing that. Furious at their bickering, Kurosaki declares they're all a bunch of bastards. The level difference between them is huge, but they act as if any of them could actually escape. Meanwhile, Grant is desperately trying to hold on, being slashed from all sides. The poor guy doesn't stand a chance. His sword breaks. He's thrown to the ground like a piece of trash. As always, the protagonist's friends are a joke. Then, Kurosaki moves in for the final blow, saying that taking out a member of the International Association is just perfect. Poor Grant knew there was no way to dodge it, but then Haruto jumps in as a human shield and takes a lash on his back. Grant demands to know why our boy is getting up, warning that the damn Kurosaki is his target. He doesn't want any help, so Grant should step aside. Haruto is acting like he's Thorfinn hunting Askeladd, and before anyone can do anything else, Kurosaki splits the boy in two. Grant is left speechless, watching the boy fall apart like a cracked open Kinder Surprise egg. The moment that happens, Kurosaki gets a hold of the golem's heart. He then turns to Erida and declares that from now on she is the only person he can trust. He warns her not to make any weird faces. After all, that boy died because she reset him to his original state, although maybe he should be thankful he died. It must be terrible to live with everything reset. Then, a sword slices off his arm and someone comments that yes, he should be grateful for being killed. Now his arm looks like an exploding champagne bottle and he collapses in pain. Still, our boy somehow reappears, emanating a powerful aura. Everyone is in shock. This guy was just shattered like a cracked open Kinder Surprise egg. How is he still walking on 2 feet? Looking back, Kurosaki sees that his body has disappeared. He picks up the sword, trying to understand what kind of freaking skill makes him immortal, but now Haruto has coated the sword with his spiderweb or with lightning, immobilizing Kurosaki on the spot. While he's paralyzed, Kurosaki declares that it's useless because he has Shadow Step to get out. However, when he tries to use it, the system warns him that his skill has been transferred and can no longer be used. He yells, ordering Erida to use it again, but she's gathering her courage and says she doesn't want to. Shockwaves travel through the web as he screams, asking if she's forgotten that she's under contract. If she had forgotten, she would remember now. That thing is starting to electrocute her arm. At least now. Haruto understands why this girl always obeyed him. He's convinced it's all because of that bracelet. Then, in true Chad fashion, Haruto slides down on one knee, grabs her hand, and activates something. He performs a Control-C, embedding the Quisisha frequency into that thing. Destroyed, he exclaims. Really? Was it that easy? That was way too quiet. I thought he'd pull some kind of move, NASA style, like channeling 1 trillion mana into it so she could control Z back to the day before she got the bracelet, but no, he just gave it a shockwave and broke it. Kurosaki, however, obviously wasn't happy about that at all, was he? He went straight to stop him while wondering why he couldn't use any skills. Haruto turns around and tells him to take a look, and suddenly he disappears and reappears right in front of him, saying he can't use it anymore because he stole the skill. Take that X to the chest, you fool. He falls like a fully bandaged mummy and drops like a rock. Haruto walks over to the golem's heart and takes it. He says it's ridiculous that they want something like this just to cause dungeon breaks. How many lives have been lost just for that? Wow, it looks like he's going to activate the Quisisha frequency. He destroyed the item in front of the two of them. The good thing is that now he's the only person with infinite mana in the world. The bad thing is that now he's the only one person with infinite mana in the world and will be hunted by everyone. But then the system says that because he destroyed the reward from an advanced dungeon, he received a unique reward. A small crystal orb appears in the hand of the poor guy, and the system informs him that he completed the secret dungeon of the golem's heart. Now I'm confused. Did he clear it twice, or was that an even more secret dungeon? Let's see. No, it looks like the gates are opening for the rest of the clueless hunters, right? Who are a little confused trying to figure out what is going on until one of them spots our boy and calls out to him. Do they want to know what happened to the rest of the group? Nope. And our boy says they were sent somewhere else, but not to worry. Seeing everything destroyed and the fool trapped like a mummy, they want to know if he defeated all of that by himself, to which the poor guy replies that he'll leave the details for later. First, it's better if everyone returns to the association the next day. Our boy is a little tense in the meeting. Nobody is saying a word. Shinoda then comments that it's incredible that the dungeon was something multi-dimensional. That was truly some very problematic information. Tekeuchi, however, is grateful that at least now they know why dungeon breaks occur, but the leader knows that the most important thing now is that the seal that Nishihara had placed has been destroyed. Furthermore, it was a multidimensional dungeon that started the great disaster from 15 years ago involving Grant. Everyone at the meeting is already freaking out, saying it's too soon to make that kind of judgment. They're all arguing while Nana loses her patience. As usual, she slams her hand on the table, stands up, and says she's leaving. Man, she has things to do, like investigating the Blood Tower Association. Takeuchi tells her to calm down, saying they weren't the only ones who had a hard time. The dungeon break that happened in the middle of the city was no walk in the park either. Shirosaki has to ask everyone to calm down. Who would have thought the delinquent would be the calmest one? Takeuchi, however, stands up and says he's not there to talk about their achievements. Walking up to Judah, he demands to know who he is. This kid who was the key to clearing a secret dungeon. Our boy, ever so humble, says he's just a hunter, but obviously Takeuchi isn't going to let it slide and asks if he doesn't know who he is. But man, Aruta is getting bold and replies that he wants to know what that's supposed to mean. He just dealt with a secret multidimensional dungeon and instead of being thanked, he's being questioned. What's up with that, man? Takeuchi is already transforming, looking for a fight. Finally, everyone in the room is startled and tells him to calm down, until the chairman calls out to him and warns him that he'll get none of the reward from the job if he doesn't stop right there. Greedy like any good capitalist, he stops immediately and shuts his mouth. He leaves the room saying the damn kid was saved by the reward he wants. Aruta, on the other hand, was impressed with that stone armor ability and already wanted to copy it. A while later, in the chairman's office, our boy is being questioned. He explains that he was just a regular hunter from the Great Sage Guild, but that he's currently a freelancer. The chairman praises him. Being a solo hunter is very difficult. Besides, the work he did in the secret dungeon was incredible. Our boy, without much to say, thanks him. But it's obvious the guy wasn't going to let him get away that easily, and right on the spot he wants to know what his plans are from now on. Ares says he's going back to his country to pass on some information, and Grant announces that he'll be staying around for a while longer. Also, he's going to leave the International Association. I don't know why, but we're at Haruto's house and unfortunately his living room has turned into a competition. There isn't even enough room for everyone to sit on the couch. Obviously, he wants to know what everyone is doing there. Grant says he just left the International Association and needs a little place to stay. Ares wants to know why he did that, to which he just replies that he can't tell him for now. Satoru says he just wants to be near our boy. He doesn't even have an excuse. He could be a giant waifu, but no, right? That damn guy. Nana says she's there to pass on some information from Arita. Just then, Haruto wants to know, right, where those two rascals are. It seems Kurosaki is in the hospital, since Arita didn't want to use the COLZ on him. As soon as he regains consciousness, they're going to transfer him to prison for questioning. Meanwhile, Arita is being interrogated, or actually, she's using her right to remain silent and is just keeping quiet during the interrogation. Unbelievable. Nana, on the other hand, is already sure there's something going on between those two troublemakers. Are you jealous? Then she reveals that Arita is a member of a K-pop dance group called IF. Satoru seems to recognize it, saying that it makes sense now because he felt like he'd seen her face before. Haruto then explains the whole bracelet thing, right? That it forced her to stay by that guy's side and says he doesn't think she'll keep acting that way. As soon as he gets a chance, he's going to the association to talk to her. Now he wants to know why Shirosaki is there. The guy, half embarrassed, says there's only one reason he's in that place. Grant warns that if it's for the golem's heart, he better forget about it. Since the protagonist destroyed it in the dungeon, no, everyone is surprised and immediately Shirosaki grabs him, shaking him back and forth, wanting to know why he would do something like that with such a rare item, until the rascal shows the other one, not maliciously. He's the king of clones. Haruto, half embarrassed, explains that what he destroyed in the dungeon was actually a fake. Grant, however, is sure that's impossible, since if he hadn't destroyed the real one, the dungeon wouldn't have been cleared. At that very moment, Shirosaki drops about 5 billion in the middle of the room. That was the price he was willing to pay for that item. Our boy was surprised, but Nana told him that was a small amount, boy. It was certainly worth much more than that. The association was willing to pay 8 billion. Satoru, however, showed the guy that there was an online auction for rare items and that you could start with a bid of 10 billion. Shirosaki then says he didn't come there for nothing and that the boy had promised to sell it to him. Out of nowhere, he drops about 20 billion, saying that no matter the price, he's willing to take it. Sometime later, lying in bed, he couldn't believe they were offering 20 billion for that item, not to mention that one was made with copy and paste. Right, imagine if he starts selling several to other countries. For those who don't know, you must be wondering why he can now copy, paste, and deliver. I don't know if I mentioned it or if I forgot, but there was a notification that said something like, You can now define the duration of the item, you know? That's why he can now transfer it to other people. I think that's it, right? If I get any different information, I'll pass it along again. He was all happy celebrating until he stood up, saying he had forgotten about the unique reward, a small crystal ball that was a sealed item which would break upon inserting mana into it. For the kid, inserting mana was the easiest thing in the world. As soon as he puts in enough mana, a golden triangle appears. It was a dimensional piece. When you gathered 5 of them, you could open a gate to any dimension you wanted, and the pieces had a property where one attracted the other. However, the number and level of dimensions that could be opened depended on the level of the key. He's all confused, but it seems he's going to need another 4, right? In order to open some place out there, apparently. Obviously, he tries the basics, right man? Hitting Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V, but the system informs him that this item cannot be copied or pasted. He gets furious, saying that this piece of junk never works when he needs it most. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door and he says to come in. It's that damn Grant, who is always on top of everything, saying there's something he wants to confirm. The two face off for a second, and what's this? He drew his sword. Gerudo is about to ask what he's doing, but he goes straight for a slash across our guy's chest. Yeah, obviously, I'm guessing he wants to test if he has the ability to go back in time. But before we find out if that's really it, let's see what happened 15 years ago, during the Grant disaster in Europe. There's a dragon there that looks more like it's smiling than angry, but anyway, it's gigantic, holding a bus in its hand. Some guys tell the mage that the beast is a fire type, so it would be good to use an ice attack. And there he goes, all Naruto Uzumaki style, jumping from the head to the arm to the back, and launches the ice attack directly at the monster. But, apparently, the creature easily protected itself with its wings and threw him back. The group had no idea how they were going to defeat an S-rank creature. Just like that, out of nowhere, the dragon prepared another flame attack and swept the entire street and, apparently, there's Grant standing with his back turned like an idiot while his friend escapes. The appearance of an abnormal creature turned the land into hell and, like someone who had just awakened, Grant threw himself towards death. The explosion was coming, man, and he just stood there waiting for the impact until someone asked him if he was okay. When he looked up, there was a huge guy holding an enormous shield. I think it was a shield with all reddish armor. Grant recognized him instantly. That was the most powerful hunter of that era. The one and only Frederick Hug, right? Who's also the husband of Ares' mother. Everyone is connected. But, from one second to the next, the guy gets bitten by the dragon, man. And only a small piece of his body was left. Grant screamed in despair, but suddenly, the boss's expression changed and it started spitting up blood. Its body filled with bubbles and the creature exploded from the inside out. Of course not. Kid, we were already expecting it. It was that Frederick guy, appearing in grand style, wielding the brave sword. Obviously, Grant was confused. That guy had just died right in front of him. Hey, kid, that's the famous Tomoka Nishihara. Could it be that she's alive? We're going to find her in another dimension. Where's all that health? Well, she could have passed that vitality to Ares, couldn't she? That wretch? And she's over there saying she already warned him not to use those skills in front of other people. Grant realizes he didn't die from the explosion, only because she put up a barrier, and Frederick says that unfortunately, this time it was an emergency, since that monster had to be eliminated. She then goes and gives him a little hug, saying that it really makes sense, since the scales of that creature were as hard as steel. Then Frederick tells the big guy to keep everything he saw a complete secret. He agrees, and right after, other hunters appear, impressed that the boss had been killed. He then goes into his beloved's arms and says it's time for them to leave. Grant, poor guy, completely out of the blue, looks at the man, puts a hand on his chest and tells him to remember him. His name is Mergrant, a newly awakened one. Frederick gives the humble man a small smile and says he will remember that name. The fool was left there thinking that the strongest hunter in the world had a skill that transcended death. What he never imagined was that he would find another person with that same type of power. He knew it was crazy, but he wanted to see it with his own eyes. After plunging the sword into Haruto's chest, the very next second, he was already behind him asking what he was trying to do. At that moment, he relaxed. Just as he suspected, that kid had the same ability as Frederick. He then apologizes, saying he only tried to kill him to confirm something he was suspecting. Obviously, Haruto tells him that was crazy, and the problem is that someone else nearby calls out to him. Satoru, of course, had also seen everything. Now things have gotten complicated for our boy. Next scene. Grant is banging his head on the ground, begging for forgiveness. Haruto asks him where the hell he learned to do a dogaza. You know, that Japanese thing where you hit your forehead on the floor. Ares explains that it was she who taught him in Asia. She says, this is the proper thing to do when you've committed a crime. Then Grant says, to atone for my sin, I swear I will stay by your side forever, Haruto. Haruto rejects him, telling him to stop deciding things on his own. Meanwhile, Satoru is curious. He wants to know if the protagonist really has the same resurrection ability that Frederick Huge once had. Haruto tells them to stop putting a name on his power, but since he didn't deny it, Satoru is already excited, saying it's crazy to think that someone can just resurrect like that. Haruto thinks it's better to let them believe that's his power for now. Out of nowhere, Ares calls him and says she has something to show him. Did she also find a piece of the triangle? Of course, Haruto recognizes it instantly. Ares says she was tracking dimensional energy and ended up in that room with. Jaruto explains that he got his piece after destroying the heart of that snow mountain giant, a kind of unique reward. Then, Ares drops the bombshell. Her piece was left to her by her mother, and from what she's read, these pieces react to each other, and since she found Jaruto, who also carries one, it all starts to make sense. Jaruto thinks that at least that's good news. It means it might be easier to find the others. But Satoru, of course, wants to know the real question. What can you actually do with those triangles? Ares, as always, knows everything. She says these can be used to open a dimensional gate. Now I don't know if Satoru has memory problems or if he's genuinely surprised, but the guy says, really? As if he hadn't already received that information from the system. What Ares adds, however, is that with the key maybe they can not only open gates, but also close them. It's then that Gerudo realizes why she was so interested in that dungeon. She tells them she believes her parents are still alive, but trapped in another dimension. Grant agrees, saying he can't imagine anyone could have killed those two. Satoru wonders if maybe the keys only exist in this world or, worse, that wherever her parents are, the gate can only be opened from the outside. Ares admits that's a possibility. Or maybe her parents actually chose to stay in that other dimension for some reason. Gerudo thinks that would only make sense if something even worse than the Great Catastrophe was about to come and they wanted to avoid it. But the important thing now is that they not only have a way to access other dimensions, but also to close them. As everyone stares at the triangle pieces on the table, Satoru wonders how they're supposed to connect them. A little push from the golem activates some kind of magnet, and boom, they snap together perfectly. The room lights up and everyone is watching as if something incredible is about to happen. But no, they just connected. Ares takes it and says she's convinced now. The resonance sound became more strong and she can feel it. The person holding these pieces is no ordinary human. Yeah, I don't know where she gets so much excitement from, but there's our mysterious elf. I still can't tell if it's a boy or a girl. Anyway, all excited, saying they can finally go home. Meanwhile, back at the Starfield Guild headquarters in Europe, someone calls out a guy named Midshield, asking why he's laughing when the Blood Tower mission failed. The Florin steps in and apologizes to Lord Mikkel, saying he's happy that Mikkel has finally absorbed Cuteril. That's the teleportation gift, right? With that, he's one step closer to becoming a transcendent. The guy teleports again, then sits down, saying that for now, it only works over short distances. The catch, the skill will only level up when he gets CTRL+C. Midshield says it won't take long. His piece has just started to resonate strongly, which means one of the 5 has been connected. Michael remarks that, clearly, Midshield is eager to return to his homeland. He asks if there aren't any dimensional keys in the land of the elves. The elf says there are keys, but the dimensional gates there no longer can be opened. 15 years ago, the witch took Kaneshira, sealing all the dimensions that connected her world to Earth. She tried to do the same thing on Earth, but the gates transform into spatial keys. Michael realizes that's the reason why combining the pieces allows you to open everything up again. The elf nods, saying that the first step is to return to their homeland and access the sacred tree, Yggdrasil. There's something there similar to CTRL+C, something that once absorbed helps you develop other talents. Michael asks if he's sure about that, especially since the first time they met, Mitchell seemed quite surprised by his talent. The guy starts to tremble, clearly not knowing how to answer. That's when the leader stands up and says he knows the real reason. 15 years ago, the elven dimension was contaminated and the sacred tree is about to collapse. That's why the elves connected with Earth to try and dump all their disaster onto this world. The plan only failed because Nishihara managed to close everything and seal the paths. He asks if it's true and, from the hesitation of Midshield, well, it's obvious. But then the leader just shrugs. He doesn't care. What he wants is to open those multidimensional passages and absorb even more powers, even if it means dooming the Earth. He says he'll take action himself. Mitchell warns that it's not time yet. He's the leader of a multinational guild. If he starts making moves now, he'll attract too much attention. That's why he shouldn't worry. He already told Lucas to go ahead with Plan B. Asterisk, cut to the Forest of Death, an advanced dungeon in Japan. Someone is facing a bunch of level 90 ghouls. And of course, it's Haruto with his male waifu. Seriously, bro, you had a bunch of girls back there to team up with and you're here hunting monsters with just guys. Or worse, Grant is sticking to him like glue, but he's already trying to run away because the monsters are too strong. Of course, Haruto doesn't want to leave. Obviously, it was a whole hassle to get access to this dungeon. He wants to make the most of it and level up. He's already celebrating, telling everyone not to worry, that he'll go ahead. The ghouls get ready and Satoru tells him to be careful because this guy is already getting emotional. Nothing has even happened yet, drama queen. The monsters all charge towards our boy and Haruto starts spamming Kotoroko, summoning a whole army of golems. Naturally, the two idiots next to him are totally confused, wondering where the hell those golems came from. Haruto is already excited, saying that his minions are killing it. Grant, confused, starts to wonder what Haruto's real power is. The last time he saw him, it was supposed to be resurrection. The first ghoul launches a bite and lands it right on a golem's head. Satoru thought that was it, there was no way it would survive, but no. Not only does the golem withstand the blow, but it punches the ghoul in the face and slams it into the ground. With that, the squad moves forward and starts to absolutely destroy the dungeon's monsters. Satoru just sits down at that point, realizing that Haruto doesn't need any help at all. Asterisk asterisk, a while later, the golems had finished off the werewolves, just as Haruto expected. His resistances and stats were way above normal. He checks his inventory and notices that the only problem now is that it's not big enough to hold a proper golem army. Thinking out loud, he says he'll have to come up with a more efficient system. Satoru tells him to go ask that Kainoseki guy, while Grant is already walking away thinking he should have never left the International Association. He feels totally useless in this group. Cut to the car with Satoru, and Haruto is impressed that this spoiled kid got a luxury car for his birthday when he suddenly gets a call from Nenes asking him to come to the association right away. Satoru asks what's wrong and Haruto says he doesn't know, but in truth, he's already guessing it's about Arita. A while later, in the association's interrogation room, Arita is sitting there, with her lips all chapped. Doesn't the art here look just like that series Return Hero? Same style. Pretty sure it's the same artist. Nenes explains that Arita has been refusing food and water for 3 days, but says she wants to talk to him. Haruto asks if it's possible to turn off the recording of their conversation, but Nenes immediately refuses. It can't be done. Haruto starts to weigh whether it's worth revealing his ability to try and copy it from her. Having 2 overpowered talents might be worth the risk, so if it comes to that, he'd pay the price. Inside the room, he offers her a glass of water and kindly asks her to drink. She glares at him, then takes a sip. Nene says, that will help with the dehydration. What a medical genius. Truly the Sherlock Holmes of hydration. Haruto then wastes no time. He tells her that his ability is infinite mana generation. She goes to say something, but he cuts her off and asks if she's been affected by the curse of the Control-Z skill. I thought she might hesitate for a moment, but nope. She just lets out a resounding yes. Now Haruto is sure. He's not the only one cursed with that mark on his neck, which means if he can copy her Control-Z skill, he might be able to copy any skill. Satoru heard all of this and realizes that a skill that restores things to their original state is way more broken than just recovering them. Satoru, meanwhile, is totally lost trying to figure out what the hell that Control-Z curse is. That's when Arita makes her request. She wants help restoring the health of her parents who have been in a coma for a long time. She would need an insane amount of mana to do it and only he can provide it. Haruto stands up and says he'll give her all the mana she needs, but from now on she's going to have to grow up a bit. Suddenly, he reaches for the handcuffs and everyone looks at him totally confused about what the hell he's doing. The whole room is flooded with a flash of light. A bubble of energy spreads out as he holds her hand. Our cunning guy is trying to copy Control-Z. Well, trying is the key word, because the system immediately notifies him that copying that skill is not possible. So much for that plan. Haruto already knew it wouldn't be easy, but he didn't expect to hit a dead end with no options. Still holding her hand, he starts to wonder what the hell he's supposed to do now. Arita, all sweet and naive, just asks what he's doing. He suddenly lets her go and says, "Oh, it's nothing," and apologizes. Then a system window pops up. Since it's not a standard skill, it can't be copied right now, but there might be a way with forced absorption. And of course, Naruto knows exactly what that means. It's the method that only works if you kill the person. The problem is, he doesn't want to just murder Arita out of the blue. Looking at her now, he starts racking his brain, searching for another way to get that skill. Satoru says, "Okay, I'm confused," and out of nowhere, Nana holds up a microphone and asks if something went wrong. Naruto says no, everything's fine, there's nothing to worry about, but on the inside he thinks the smartest move is to keep this girl close, at least until a better solution comes along. Just then, he says he's willing to go to the hospital where Arita's parents are. Later that afternoon, at the central hospital, Erita explains that her parents were affected by mana poisoning, something that happened 15 years ago during that mysterious attack. Once again, just as he suspected, she always had a reason to stay close to Kurosaki. Naruto then asks Nana if Kurosaki is also being treated at that hospital. She says yes, but he's in the basement. The plan is to start interrogating him as soon as he wakes up. Nana wonders if Arita is okay with that, and she says she's not too concerned. Suddenly, he senses something. That blonde guy from before walks by and seems to notice something in the basement too, in front of a door, probably where they're holding Kurosaki. A couple of guards stop the blonde guy and tell him only authorized personnel are allowed to pass. He hands them a card, thanks them for their hard work, and tells them to check it. But when the guard checks it, there's nothing but Control F written on the paper, bro. In that same second, the blonde guy vanishes and both guards are enveloped in shadow. Their eyes turn completely black, and the next thing you know, they just walk away, saying he can go in and look at whatever he wants. The blonde guy walks through the door and approaches the pod where Kurosaki is being held. He activates a glowing purple orb in his hand, remembering how someone once told Lord Lucas that he was the only one who could pull this off. It was Midshield, the elf, who told him that if the Blood Tower mission failed, his job was to place several of those orbs all over Tokyo. He had asked him what kind of cursed things they were, and Midshield told him they were the contaminated fruits of Drassel brought from their homeland. Basically, they could be used to create a barrier and open a subspace. The blonde guy wanted to know what was in that subspace. Midshield just told him to take a look, and the guy nearly passed out when he saw it. A giant, monstrous creature with a gaping mouth appears in another dimension, like those horrible things we saw in our good librarian's world. Midshield warns that's the most he can show him for now. His mission was crucial to allow Starfield and the entire team to move freely. Lucas was sure they were using him to cause a dungeon break right in the middle of Tokyo. Problem: he also had family inside Starfield, so backing down wasn't an option. It seems that everyone in this world has that weakness. Family seems to be the ultimate kryptonite for hunters. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Erita's father starts to wake up confused, asking what is happening. He looks to the side and sees his daughter hugging his mother, crying with happiness. Seitora is getting emotional with tears in his eyes, while Nanase just looks at him like, what the hell is this guy doing here? He says it was all thanks to Haruto, because not even a high-level healer could have provided so much mana to allow Arita to use her ability like that. Meanwhile, Nanase's mind is racing, an ability that can rewind things to their previous state. That's extremely dangerous. She'll definitely need to keep an eye on this girl. Then, the protagonist asks, where's more? Cut to Lucas calmly walking down the hospital hallway, not suspicious at all, until a system window suddenly appears. Control F has detected a user with control-type abilities nearby, right? Took me long enough to realize. That hooded guy walking next to him. Yep, it's Kurosaki, the bastard. He's been released. And like an idiot, Lucas says something about a control user nearby out loud, and, of course, Kurosaki hears him. He immediately assumes it must be Arita. Suddenly, someone calls out Lucas Grant's name. He says Lucas's face was so hidden he almost didn't recognize him. Then he demands to know what a hunter from the International Association is doing in Japan. Boom, just then he sees Kurosaki and says, so 2 dogs from Starfield. Lucas replies by asking what Grant from the International Association is doing there, but Grant ignores him. He pulls a sword out of thin air and says Kurosaki is a wanted criminal. Lucas tries to calm things down, saying that causing chaos in the middle of a hospital is insane. Meanwhile, Kurosaki is over there asking for a sword, since his entire inventory was confiscated. That's when Haruto appears right behind Grant, announcing that he's there too. The moment he sees him, Kurosaki is furious. Haruto is using the power that used to be his. Then, a window appears for Lucas. Right in front of him is the user with the Control-C and Control-B abilities. His expression changes immediately. This is exactly what he's been looking for all this time. But now, someone else is walking down the hall. She says, the troubles just keep on coming, and just by the tip of the spear, we already know who it is. Lucas, now looking like a complete idiot, starts hearing final boss music in his head. And there's the impressive Nanase, fully equipped, saying, yep, the day just keeps getting worse. Kurosaki is already panicking. He warns Lucas to be careful with this damn Nanase. He tells him they'd better get out of there fast. Then, bam. Someone throws 2 handcuffs right in front of them. It's Nanase, cooler than ever, telling them that if they put them on peacefully, maybe they won't have to get hurt. Kurosaki, feeling humiliated, grabs a civilian and warns them to back off because there are already a lot of injured people in this place, but many more could get hurt if they provoke him. But, boom. In the next panel, he gets a flying kick to the chest from Nanase, goes flying down the hall, and crashes into the wall, spitting up like a liter of blood. Poor Lucas just stands there. That escalated really quickly. Nanase calls him by name and says they should settle this peacefully. Lucas glances to the side and sees Kurosaki passed out, slumped against the wall. He thinks, yeah, I probably won't fare much better if I try anything stupid. Then he remembers when Mathilde handed him the Atrocil seed. He asked why he had been chosen. The elf explained. The seed was, with mana corruption, and normal humans couldn't touch it. But Lucas could. Just like Kurosaki, he asked why, and the elf revealed the truth. Kurosaki had violated international law by using skills powered by black mana, the same cursed mana the seed needed to function. That's when Lucas understood. To the association, he's just like Kurosaki. And just when you think he might try to reason, Lucas says, no, there's no peaceful way out of this. He unsheathes his sword, saying he needs Kurosaki and will take him no matter what. The weapon Lucas is holding is instantly recognized by everyone. Grant knows that Rapier Angelus, an extremely rare weapon passed down through generations of Britannian heroes. Only one exists in the world. It was equivalent to the legendary dragon's chalice sword, but instead of being made for cutting, Angelus was built for piercing. In the blink of an eye, Lucas lunges straight for Nanase. She tries to block with her spear, but man, Angelus pierces right through the spear and hits her square in the chest. Naruto jumps, worried, but she stays calm. She tells him not to interfere, turns to Lucas, and says they're clearly about to make a huge mess in this hospital. She pulls the blade out like it's nothing, and Lucas just watches, completely baffled as to how the hell she managed to block it. She lunges with a spear attack. He dodges just in time, still confused about how she managed to defend against a direct hit. But, bro, stop thinking so much. You're about to take a spear to the face. The attack looks like it lands clean, but Lucas barely manages to deflect it with his sword. Still, Nanase is clearly on another level. Her strength sends him flying back. He wasn't even stabbed directly and he's already spitting up blood. The guy has internal injuries and suddenly realizes, yeah, his chances aren't good. Now he gets it because Nanase is among the 10 strongest hunters in the world. Desperate, he starts to activate something in his sword, a function he didn't want to use inside a hospital. But suddenly someone shouts his name. Nanase, it's Kurosaki, getting up from the back, holding the damn Yggdrasil seed in his hand. He's celebrating openly, saying that the hospital they've been trying so hard to protect is about to be wiped from existence. Oh, God. He slams it into the ground, and even Lucas says it's a terrible idea, but Kurosaki just smirks. The more central in Tokyo, the better. And this hospital, right in the heart of the city, perfect. Naruto has no idea what Kurosaki is talking about, but Grant recognizes it immediately. Black mana. A rare and corrupted energy. It's shocking to see so much packed into a single object. Gerudo quickly uses CTRL+C to activate both Shadow Step and a restraining net. In the next second, boom, he's behind Kurosaki again, mummifying him with the net just like before. But Kurosaki smiles, too late. Before Gerudo can finish him off, a flower sprouts from the ground. Huge branches burst upward and the entire hospital starts to collapse. Bro, they're raining patience. A giant tree forms around the entire building, and I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty beautiful in a nature apocalypse kind of way. But while I'm here admiring the view, the poor patients aren't enjoying the ride. They're falling and screaming, some about to plummet to their deaths. Oh no, he let go of the girl's hand. She's going to fall. But don't worry, Chad arrived to save the day with his web. Are you okay, miss? She says. Yes, I'm fine. And then zip, he's gone. Bye-bye. Apparently, our boy has already saved a bunch of patients. The problem is, no one can get out of that place now. Nanas and Grant are working together, helping the others. But the entire hospital is surrounded by an absurd amount of black mana. Somewhere nearby, Satoru is calling on one of his minions to lift a boulder and pull people out from under the rubble. Then Gerudo shows up and Satoru asks him, what the hell happened? Our boy just wants to know if the situation is under control. Satoru nods. Yeah, thanks to Ares. Which of course makes Gerudo ask, where is that freaking Ares? They head to a place completely surrounded by ice. He touches the surface and asks, what is this? And she replies with total calm, well, it's obviously an amazing ice wall. It turns out she placed several of these ice barriers in different rooms to prevent the structure from collapsing completely. The problem is that it wasn't enough to block all the black mana. Gerudo thanks her, saying that at least it seems like things are stable now. Right away, Gerudo talks to Orita and tells her, something strange destroyed the entire hospital. The easiest way to fix it would be to restore everything. He asks if she can do it. She says yes. After all, she has restored entire dungeons before, and with him nearby, the mana supply is the last thing she's worried about. Next scene. They're standing right in front of the tree trunk. Apparently, Kurosaki and Lucas managed to escape, and no one seems too worried about it. Like, well, they escaped. I guess we'll catch them later. Pretty chill for two fugitives, right? Satoru asks where the tree came from and Gerudo explains. It was Kurosaki's doing and now he's disappeared. That makes Arita even more furious. Her parents were in that hospital and that bastard put the lives of both of them at risk. Eris is silently observing the tree's roots, so Gerudo tells her to begin the restoration. She starts to channel that warm, radiant energy into the trunk and places her hand on it. The ground begins to shake, and the branches tremble with it. It's not clear if the tree is rewinding or receding, but the roots seem to be retracting. Everyone watches anxiously, and, then, the entire tree begins to shrink. It forms a giant portal in front of them, absorbing all the energy. But then, it seems like Arita is losing concentration. She stops casting the spell. Naruto notices it immediately. That thing is the source of the black mana, and now she's in danger. Time for Chad to save the day again. Okaktoro Kyu casts a huge wall of spiderwebs to seal the black mana. It's not entirely clear what happened, if the mana bounced back or was deflected, but suddenly Arita is in his arms. Satoru asks if she's okay. Naruto says yes, but one thing is clear, Arita failed to restore the tree. Naruto immediately gives the order, evacuate the hospital. He's convinced that creatures could start coming out of that portal at any moment. Since when is this kid giving orders like a captain? But hey, the others just follow him. He turns to Ares and asks if she recognizes that thing. She replies that, according to the knowledge passed down from her mother, it's something from another dimension known as a corrupted seed of the cosmic tree Yggdrasil. Its purpose, to attract and concentrate all the corruption from another dimension into itself. Maybe Arita's power didn't work because you can't just hit Ctrl-Z on something that wasn't even from this world to begin with. And what's worse, the records say that this thing normally activates when 3 or 4 are used at the same time. 10 minutes later, outside the hospital, paramedics are trying to recover what's left of the victims. The poor F-rank hunters are doing what they can, raising weak magical barriers to try and suppress the mana black around the tree, but it's not enough. The association's president can't believe it. Once again, they're dealing with an extra-dimensional threat right in the middle of Tokyo. Nanase apologizes and says she has already sent out a hunter alert for Kurosaki and Lucas. Takeuchi doesn't miss the chance to throw some shade, saying he never expected her to let those two get away. And if Lucas is involved, maybe it's time to confront Starfield directly. Shirosaki, however, says there's no point. They'll just say that the Blood Tower is Japan's problem and refuse to get involved. But he doesn't care about that. He says he'll capture Kurosaki himself very soon. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking again. The hospital looks like it's about to collapse. A guy comes running, shouting that they have a serious problem. A second tree is sprouting up somewhere else in the city. Naruto realizes it immediately. Kurosaki is at it again. All because these idiots thought it was a good idea to capture and rehabilitate him instead of chopping off his head when they had the chance. Now on all the news, there's only one topic. 2 mysterious trees appearing in the middle of Tokyo, both radiating strange black mana. Naturally, the citizens are starting to get nervous, wondering if life will ever return to normal. Meanwhile, inside a car somewhere in the city, Kurosaki is relaxed, thinking to himself that there's no way they'll catch him in all this chaos. He even tells Lucas, "You're more ruthless than I thought. I never imagined you'd use black mana to brainwash people like that." Apparently, people are already starting to flee the city, and who can blame them? The exposure prolonged to black mana can cause the same illness that affected Arita's parents. In the car, Kurosaki continues with the topic of brainwashing and Lucas snaps, telling him to shut up. Kurosaki just smirks and says, "Calm down, man, it was a compliment." They know the authorities must be desperate to find them, but as long as Kurosaki sticks close to Lucas, they won't be discovered. And why is that? Because no one suspects they're hiding in a police car. Only 3 more to go and then it'll be time to move forward with the plan. Back at the headquarters of the Hunter Association, in the chairman's office, they're starting to realize that more trees might be getting planted. Ares had shared the information, records left behind in his mother's books. When these trees start appearing, a disaster will strike Tokyo because the trees act as both portals and barriers. Translation: they're about to be invaded by monsters from another world. Shirosaki is visibly shaken because this is exactly how the catastrophe began 15 years ago. Haruto, meanwhile, starts to remember something. A long time ago, when those same tree trunks erupted from the ground, he was in a car with his father. Of course, his dad was yelling at him to sit down and buckle up before he went flying through the windshield. As the car sped down the road, they were trying to outrun the emerging trunks. Then, bam! One slammed right into the side of the car. It seems Haruto had blocked out those memories, but now they're all coming back at once, and based on what he's seeing now, it was those same damn trees that caused his parents' death. Who's behind this? Yeah, he's not going to forgive them. And we all know exactly who that someone is. Kurosaki, that damn bastard. Shirosaki says he doesn't remember the tree incident. Back then, he was busy dealing with dungeons elsewhere and didn't witness it personally. Then Ares chimes in and explains that not only do the trees serve as portals to another dimension, they also open up a kind of subspace. Nanase looks confused while Shirosaki wants to know, why do all this, or why bring contaminated things from another world? Nanase explains, to create a black mana subspace, you need multiple corrupted trees, accumulating a huge amount of black energy in one place. Ares warns that in the worst-case scenario, an entire dimension could end up collapsing onto their planet. Haruto, he's smirking to himself because he has a plan to use the tree's subspace along with the one he has in his inventory to build an army of golems. It's not clear how exactly he plans to pull this off, but hey, he's got that I have a crazy plan and it just might work look on his face. And of course, Takeuchi, the genius, is there yelling at everyone to stop making up fantasy stories, calling it all nonsense, as if he's the creator of the universe. Don't you have to see something personally for it to be real? Then someone casually pulls out a dimensional key and suddenly the same bald guy who just said none of this is real says, wait, are you really going to activate a dimensional key? Make up your mind, dude. Have you seen it or not? Let us know. Ares explains that one piece came from his mother and the other is the one Haruto got from the Golem Mountain. Now the bald guy finally seems to believe it, but he also knows that 2 pieces won't be enough. Ares agrees, but adds that it seems another piece is drawing near. He believes this disaster will also reveal the other missing pieces, and that they will be the key to fixing everything. Meanwhile, the delinquent Harry Potter isn't exactly thrilled with how things are unfolding. The chairman then points out that if the portals open, it won't just be a problem for Japan. It will affect the whole world. They need to find the 3 pieces urgently. That's when Shirosaki drops a bombshell. His guild also has one of the pieces. Cut to a while later at the future guild's warehouse. Our boy is in front of the door, totally impressed by how secure the facility is. Takeuchi comments, I knew Shirosaki was obsessed with dungeon items, but I never imagined he'd create an entire subspace just to hide one thing. Naturally, Haruto wants to know exactly how he did it. Meanwhile, that damn bald guy we all want gone mutters that he probably ended up with a fake item. But Haruto's system for tracking the pieces clearly shows that the next one is right in that direction. Both pieces are resonating. Shirosaki then taps his digital interface and the doors open. He was expecting piles of items, but in reality, there's just that small piece sitting in the center of a giant crystal. The bald guy keeps asking, why would you need such a secure place just to store a trinket? Haruto cuts him off, saying that from now on, only he and Shirosaki will handle it. Naturally, Takeuchi loses his temper and asks who he thinks he is. But to help our boy out, Ares steps in, saying that combining the pieces is incredibly dangerous, so it's best if just the 2 of them do it. Shirosaki then orders Takeuchi to stand down. Just the 2 of them will handle it. The albino Mike Tyson version doesn't accept it and warns that if anything goes wrong, he'll personally kill them both. But our boy simply closes the door, waving goodbye to the idiot. Once inside, Haruto sees that the piece Shirosaki is holding is numbered as 4. Now he wants to know where he got it. Shirosaki grunts that he's not going to answer. It's just a means to an end. Once the pieces are combined, he plans to immediately enter the barrier so nothing bad happens. Haruto feels confident. He's protected by his shadow net and his shadow step ability. But before he can take out the pieces from his inventory, piece number 4 starts to react. Suddenly, an object flies directly at him, causing an explosion inside the room. There wasn't even time for Shirosaki to react before the outer door was blown to bits. Nana's, she feels something is about to happen. The door is shattered from the inside and Shirosaki is calling for Sano. Then he hears someone's voice saying that he thought he was going to die. Of course, that person used his shadow step ability to dodge the impact. Looking at his inventory with the 3 pieces, Haruto mutters that he never imagined they would fuse on their own, but Shirosaki is clearly furious. The kid, already full of rare skills, now also has a very unusual movement power. Haruto tells Shirosaki not to be so surprised and that he can explain, but then Shirosaki grabs him by the neck and throws him to the ground. Man, if I were Haruto, I would have already ripped that delinquent Harry Potter's head off. He's demanding to know why, and Shirosaki tells him it's impossible to use Shadow Step without black mana. He insists that Haruto has to explain himself. Haruto doesn't really know how to explain it. His urge to kill that damn Harry Potter is overwhelming. Obviously, he doesn't want to admit he's using co-control, so he just says he can't use dark magic. But Shirosaki isn't satisfied. He wants to know how Haruto is then using a magic that clearly accesses black mana. Before long, the guy is unleashing dark electrical energy on our boy. What the hell is this? Hey, come on, they've gone crazy. They don't know he's the master of control. Yeah, wow. And it seems Haruto can't escape because that black electricity is a power that counters his shadow step. That bastard starts accusing Haruto, saying he's been suspicious of him since the Quisisha dungeon. He wants to know exactly who Haruto is, what happened on that mountain, and what his connection is to that damn Kurosaki. Haruto can't believe this guy actually thinks he's allied with Kurosaki. Just because they share a similar skill doesn't mean they're partners, and now he's face to face with him. Finally, the guy starts to lose his cool. He says, "Let's go crazy." Haruto starts killing everyone. Just thinking about it is already making him furious. He fires a CTRL+C, unleashing a barrage of his web skills and taunts. It's ridiculous that Shirosaki wants to kill me over something so trivial. Bathe in your own web, you idiot, become a hairball. But as soon as the hit lands, Haruto regrets having charged in. His catball form is being instantly shattered. In the blink of an eye, Shirosaki breaks free and Haruto is forced to defend against the counterattack. Then, that damn Harry Potter-style character, as they mockingly call him, continues, saying that if Haruto doesn't want to talk, it's because he's hiding a secret and he's going to die for it. That's when Haruto remembers. Man, I got into a fight with a hunter who's level 500. He barely reached 300 and now his only option is to win no matter what. He pulls out a top-quality potion that restores 95% of his health. Shirosaki's attack is bearing down on him and Haruto rushes to defend himself. What the hell is this? Oh, I get it. He let his health drop below 25% to activate Khaleesi's Berserker mode. Right after taking Shirosaki's hit, he draws his sword and counterattacks. "Take that, you pathetic Harry Potter," he yells. The barrier starts to crack and he's stunned that it's even happening. Then, a flash of light erupts and the whole place begins to explode. "Just die already, you bastard," someone shouts. "No one had any intention of hurting our boy." Then a flashback hits. Shirosaki is seen talking to his brother, deciding they wanted to be the strongest in the future. That's why they named their future guild. They must have really been operating with a 10 IQ. This bright and shining guy is Shirosaki Soa, and you think he'd already be dead with that innocent, almost naive smile. 10 years ago, they were face to face with a creature, while his brother brandished a bunch of talismans, and this time they even managed to defeat the so-called Lord, Hell Demon. Even though the creatures were incredibly dangerous, they didn't flinch. In front of a dungeon gate, Suda mentioned having a strange feeling, as if some uninvited hunters had snuck into the party. But, ever the naive one, he declared it was the perfect opportunity to take a dungeon controlled by Midas. That was their ticket for the future guild to sneak into the top 10 strongest in the country. Besides, he didn't have to worry because his brother was there. However, Suda just watched in silence the mummified guy. Next thing you know, the boss is dead, along with all the hunters shattered on the ground. Clearly, the mummified guy took out his brother and Shirosaki screams for answers, but the guy just tells him to give up on his brother. He had been tainted by a black mana addiction, a disease that would soon turn him into something worse than a. Shirosaki then orders the bastard to hand over the antidote immediately. The mummified guy says, "Give me your shadow step ability and I'll show you how to save your brother. Refuse, and you're dead." So it seems Shirosaki reluctantly handed over the skill. I love how practical this world is. If you have a power, you just pass it over like a credit card. "There you go, buddy. Take it home." When he asked for the antidote, the guy revealed he would need the sword known as Brilliance. It was the only way to cure his brother's mana poisoning. Naturally, Shirosaki panicked. He wanted an antidote or that kind of information. Then, the guy dropped another bombshell. There is no real antidote for a mana addiction, but that didn't matter much, since this dungeon was about to collapse and they would both die anyway. Shirosaki was acting even more naive than the characters in those cheesy stories, insisting that it seemed like the bastard had planned to kill him from the start. The guy started to fade away, saying it wasn't yet time for the world to know about the existence of black mana skills or black mana itself. It was then that the whole place started to be destroyed. At that moment, Suda showed him the item he had found in the boss room. Shirosaki had no idea what it was for, but it looked completely different from any other item. Desperate, Shirosaki told him to forget that damn item and focus on surviving. They needed to use his skill to get out of there. But Suda replied that there was no way to save him and then used a force return skill on Shirosaki. Poor Harry Potter, as he was mockingly called, screamed in desperation, demanding to know why, but his brother could only apologize. Suddenly, he reappeared in the guild office, crying his eyes out while holding the dimensional triangle. Back in the present, during his fight with our beloved Haruto, Shirosaki explained that for the 10 years following that incident, he had searched every dungeon, but never managed to find that exact piece again. He even doubted that his brother was still alive. Haruto then understood why this guy was so obsessed with raiding every dungeon he could find. Haruto was drinking a potion because, although the Berserker effect was incredibly powerful, the cost was high. Shirosaki had warned him about that. That's why he had been researching black mana and dark skills despite the inevitable punishments. Shadow Step is an extremely rare skill, and aside from that guy wrapped in bandages, no one else should be able to use it. Haruto then offered to explain how he managed to use it, but Shirosaki interrupted him, saying it was no longer necessary. He had seen that Haruto had just used Kalichi's dragon sword. That could only happen if Haruto possessed some kind of ability to copy or steal other skills. Shirosaki apologized for not knowing our boy was a bandit, but he insisted that everything was clear now. Haruto replied, "It's not clear. I'm not a bandit." They argued for a bit, and after a while, Shirosaki said that once the dimensional key was complete, he wanted to go with them. He also insisted that he should be the one to kill Kurosaki. Haruto just replied that he didn't really care much about Kurosaki anymore, it seemed. Speaking of that bastard, Kurosaki was already causing more destruction in Tokyo. Suddenly, the battlefield door burst open and Grant, seeing our boy all beaten up, asked if something had happened. Haruto explained that it was just the combination of the keys that caused that huge explosion. Nanase then urged them to hurry, pointing out that while they were inside, the contaminations were still spreading. Shirosaki knew it was all Kurosaki's doing and was already looking forward to killing him. Then Ares warned that, judging by Kurosaki's movements, he could guess where he would attack next. Apparently, in the city of Ginza. Nanase agreed, pointing out that since Ginza is huge and crowded, it could mean many casualties. Haruto wanted to protect the city, of course, but there wasn't enough webbing to contain a portal that was spitting out millions of monsters. Shirosaki said he would call the future guild to finish off that bastard, while Nana stated she would contact all the other guilds. She even suggested that Grant and the protagonist accompany her to the association to start helping. But our boy was too emo for that and insisted that he would prepare everything on his own. Nanas couldn't help but ask, "Why do you want to handle everything by yourself?" He replies that he's sure the subspace will be huge, so it will be a matter of numbers. She retorts, "All right then, you're just going to stop talking about your plan." Shirosaki is already leaving, saying he wants to see him do his best. At that moment, our boy announces that he's going to need Grant's help, who is finally being recognized for his worth. Our protagonist adds that he has indeed come to appreciate Grant for being the perfect guy to carry all the things he needs. Meanwhile, at the Starfield Operations headquarters, that weird elf that I've hated so much says that the request for help from Japan has arrived. In other words, the time has come. Michael isn't very happy because the barrier doesn't seem to be complete yet. He asks if the subspace will open correctly, and the elf insists that it will. The place is already filling up with orcs and goblins, and the situation is getting ripe. A guy in a helmet chimes in, saying it's ridiculous to think that just goblins and orcs will be enough, since Uchi, Nanase, the Japanese would eliminate them in no time. And now it seems the whole colorful group, yellow hats, green and blue ones like some kind of Power Rangers, are doubting the plan. But the guy tells them not to worry, that he and the master will take care of everything. My LD reminds everyone that it's no coincidence they prepared countless cursed trees. The subspace is even bigger than before. The White Ranger gets excited, saying that with this, even with help from the Americans, they wouldn't have been able to pull it off. Midshield is convinced that if he unleashes this huge disadvantage in the middle of Tokyo, it will be the end for that place. Mikhail celebrates, swearing by the land he comes from and by Yggdrasil that this time the plan will work. He's already leaving, telling everyone not to worry. This isn't the first time he's opened his subspace in Tokyo. Ah, you bastard. So you were the one who caused trouble in the past. Meanwhile, at the White House in America, President Biden, looking a few decades younger and with an albino complexion, is visibly affected by this whole dimensional mess that's reopening in Japan. On the other hand, Logan Bowman, the director of the Black Skin Chair, explains that it's the same type of catastrophe that happened 15 years ago. Naturally, the president is even more worried about something like this happening on American soil, but people tell him to relax, since everything seems to be happening over there. They're pretty calm. Biden asks how the International Hunter Organization is reacting, and Logan replies that apparently Michael from Starfield is heading there to help. Yes, he will offer a lot of assistance. Can you count on Michael? A woman nearby finds it all very strange, wondering why a hunter as famous, rich, and powerful as him would want to help Japan during a catastrophe. He just shrugs, saying he has no idea. Suddenly, she looks surprised. She just got a call. Apparently, it's from the president of the American Hunter Association, sending a video message. When she turns on the TV, Simon from Frey appears, explaining that they're facing a big problem. Biden comments that if it's about the incident in Japan, he's already been informed. The guy says it's something similar, but everything seems to be getting out of control. This is because the Ouroboros Guild is heading directly to Japan. That development leaves Logan a bit confused. He wonders if Turner isn't going to handle it himself. The Frey guy replies that it's not even that. It seems Turner took the entire team from the American guilds. Logan says it's crazy to send someone like that to another country, since he possesses as much power as an entire military force. If he were to go wild in a peaceful country like Japan, it would be a huge problem. To be honest, the Japan we're seeing isn't exactly peaceful these days. Logan asks what the association plans to do, and the guy simply replies that there's not much they can do to stop that guy. Then, Biden says that things are turning into something that goes beyond Japan. They had the intention of preparing the best hunters and sending them there too, but they kept it a secret. Back in Sakurai City, the trees keep sprouting up everywhere. Meanwhile, that idiot Lucas is doing a monologue saying that now, just as Kurosaki said, he has become just like that bastard, using the excuse of protecting himself, his family, and his father as the reason behind everything. It all started the day he received the Control-F curse. Suddenly, information from all over the world, desires, events, everything started flooding his mind. He could even feel the consciousness of dead monsters. He spent a whole week unable to wake up, lost in that vast sea of data. Exhausted, he even tried to take his own life to end that D times M and Control-F curse. But, ironically, that's when he found a reason to live, the heirloom that was in his family's hall, the Angelus rapier, a holy sword. Just by holding it, the Control-F curse was instantly nullified. He finally had a way to understand and control that D times MN ability at the same time. Because of that, from that day on, he always kept the sword with him. But obviously, it wasn't just any sword. It was a national treasure that everyone, one way or another, wanted to use to protect the country. When several accidents started happening, Nishihara, the one who sealed the portals, began asking his father to hand over that sword so he could use it to kill the creatures. But to protect it, his father always refused. Somehow, because of him, they indirectly suffered countless losses since the sword was extremely powerful. And with that, the family lost all its status and power. Determined to restore their glory, he began trying to master the Control-F curse. It's almost ironic, trying to give an epic speech and suddenly dropping a Control-F. But the bastard was there, absorbing black mana because he realized it was one of the few ways to control it. In his quest to learn black mana, he met that D times MN midshield Michael, and thanks to them, the family regained the power it once had. But the price was astronomical. As soon as Michael found out he had Control-F, his talent was used to track targets. When they found the people, Michael would eliminate them and steal their powers. For a long time, he's been using the excuse that he was just following orders for the sake of his family and to restore his father's glory. But the truth is, he obeyed Michael because he was afraid of being killed. Honestly, he was nothing more than a coward, and now he's scared to death of what might happen if Haruto Sano's Control-C falls into that guy's hands. Then, he seems to throw his sword into his inventory, and at that precise moment, he's overwhelmed by an avalanche of information. He starts searching for our boy's info until he finally finds Control-C. What a bastard! Didn't you already know who he is? He's tracking his whereabouts in the world. We fast forward. Now we're on a plane soaring through the skies. This XXX Tentacion clone turns out to be none other than Turner Miller, the #1 hunter in the world. The #1 in the world. I thought he was just from the United States, but no, he's the real deal. The system even rates his level as immeasurable. The guy has literally broken the game. Not even the author knows what level he's at. Then the guy next to him asks why he's going to Japan in a private jet instead of using a teleport. Are you crazy? A trip to Japan takes about 10 hours, man. Seriously, it would have been better to take the teleporter. But then, Temptation asks if Richard forgot his motto. All twisted up, he replies that he never forgot it. His motto is, the moment you let your guard down, danger will appear out of nowhere. Wow, what a great motto. Can we get a summary of that, please? Looking out the window, Turner Miller, our XXX Tentacion clone, remembers that 15 years ago when the Japan disaster occurred, he was just a humble A-rank hunter. It was Nishihara who saved him, and shortly after, he received his transcendental ability. In the blink of an eye, he became one of the strongest hunters in the world. It seems something was handed to him right before the disaster ended. Hey, kid, another bag of Doritos, huh? He reflects as if this whole situation came straight out of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel. Your move. It's time to duel. Now he's excited because after 15 long years, that dimensional piece has finally started to resonate. So, what exactly is happening in Japan right now? Back in Ginza, Tokyo. Just as Ares had predicted, the subspaces are starting to open up and the black mana is beginning to contaminate the area. Master Shinoda, who on second thought looks like a deep web Doctor Strange, is busy purifying the air with some high-tech equipment, but it's obvious that he can't handle everything this cursed tree is doing on his own. The rest of the association is also doing their best. Meanwhile, Takeuchi is on the streets of Midas City, waiting for the creatures to start appearing. The chairwoman wants to know what the other guilds are saying. She explains that they are helping evacuate the citizens, although not all of them will be able to escape in time. Then, she demands to know where the hell the protagonist is. She tells him that the guy claimed to have a different, important mission. He's somewhat confused. What could be more important than saving all of Tokyo from annihilation? She admits she's also curious, but insists that he didn't seem to have any bad intentions. Then, another guy, Ikanaga Aoi, asks why they keep mentioning Sano's name. I'm starting to think the author of this work is a gossip. Every time someone's name is mentioned, someone else overhears and wants in on the tea. In a hunter shopping mall in Ginza, Satoru shows up loaded with backpacks, boasting that he brought everything they asked for. The problem is, it looks like they brought way too much and Grant complains, asking what they're going to do with all of it. Haruto is trying to use CTRL+C on the callous sword, but the system warns him that he doesn't have enough mana. What is he trying to do? Clone the sword for everyone. I'm not too sure either. Satoru announces that they've already gathered more than 13 items, but apparently it's still not enough. Grant asks if he's sure about the plan, and Haruto says this is their best option right now. What he really needs, however, is a bit of subspace so he can copy and paste. Then, midway, the blonde guy appears right in front of them. Grant opens his mouth to say something, but the blondie just orders him to shut up, insisting that he wants to talk to Haruto. Obviously, he first demands that Haruto put down that extremely dangerous holy sword, but Haruto, he smiles. If there's one thing he loves, it's a powerful sword. After all, with the talent, Krolu, it's always a solid choice. He suddenly drops all his bags and teleports behind Lucas, confident that now that he's reached the highest level, copying will be a piece of cake. But Lucas quickly backs away and warns him to stay away with that damn Control-C. Naturally, Haruto is confused. How the hell does that bastard know about his keyboard? He feigns confusion. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about a Control-C trick. However, the blonde makes it clear there's no point in hiding it. It seems he has all the information. The slash comes at Haruto, but his shadow step is ridiculously broken. He appears right behind him. However, shadow step is a dark ability, a weakness when fighting against a holy sword. At that moment, Lucas slams the sword into the ground, unleashing a flash that illuminates the entire city. Looking out the window, Haruto says that it feels just like that time with Shirasaki's black light. It was so intense that it practically erased his shadow, making it impossible for him to move within it. 200 IQ. But on second thought, you can also do that with a spotlight. The blonde guy approaches and comments that the reason Haruto is standing still is because all the skills he has copied so far must be of the dark element. Haruto thanks him for the tip, promising that the next time he'll make sure to copy something different. The real problem now is that he needs to find a foolproof way to control that holy sword. As Haruto ponders his next move, Lucas steps in, insisting that the whole mess he's in is because of that freaking Control-C ability he possesses. Immediately, our protagonist is convinced that this guy must also have some kind of control ability. He asks, "Are you trying to kill me to steal my talent? Is that why you joined Kurosaki?" Lucas loses his cool and launches an attack, telling him not to confuse him with that trash. Wow. He lands a good hit right on Haruto's chest. Even Lucas seems surprised. He didn't expect to hit him so easily, but Haruto just tries to keep his composure. He activates Control-C on the Holy Sword Angelus. Although the system warns him that if he copies and absorbs the Holy Sword, he won't be able to use his Shadow Step ability. Realizing this, Haruto calmly backs away and pulls a potion from his inventory to recover. He thought that since his ability is more about copying and isn't inherently dark mana, he could keep both powers. Lucas already notices the bastard let himself get hit on purpose to activate the copy. So, he says he's going to ask for the last time what exactly he plans to do with Control-C, Haruto explains. Obviously, I'm aiming to become the most powerful hunter, someone who surpasses even all the Transcendentals. Dodging the attacks from Lucas, he adds that ever since he received this talent, time has never been on his side. Apparently, he didn't know about the curse that comes with it. He only has 5 years until the catastrophe arrives. Lucas is completely bewildered by this talk of running out of time and the impending disaster. When he absorbed his talent, so much information hit him at once that everything went blurry. Naruto debates whether to copy the sword or not, fearing he'll lose his shadow step in the process. The system then warns him that he can no longer copy it. I guess I'll take another sword slash, since it's free, he thinks, planning to clone it later. Then, just at that moment, a bolt of lightning splits the sky. Everyone realizes what they feared is about to begin. The system alerts them that a portion of another dimension, home to the black spirits of the subspace, has opened in Tokyo. The designated area will be contaminated, reducing the HP and MP of all hunters by 30% and imposing restrictions on the number of skills and mana they can use. In other words, that portal is diabolical. It's weakening the entire city. We go back a few minutes to when a gigantic tree was demolishing the city. Upon fully evolving, a section of that dimension was completed, and everyone in the area received the same mana warning. Kurosaki was celebrating. Once this subspace opened, Tokyo was destined to become hell on earth and the mission would be complete. Then someone shouts that he won't let this happen with bursting thunder. You know what's coming. The bandit Harry Potter appears, declaring that today Kurosaki will die. The bastard replies that he doesn't care. It was already too late. The contamination had already begun, and Tokyo was now destined for destruction. Kurosaki simply shrugs, saying he doesn't give a damn. He's going to kill him. Simple as that, especially since the black mana debuff isn't affecting him. Both bastards use black mana, so at that moment, neither is being weakened. But now Kurosaki has switched to demon mode, warning that he's not the only one who knows how to use black mana. Every hunter on standby receives the message, and they all get pretty scared. It's the most intense debuff they've ever suffered, on top of not being able to use several of their skills. The guy with the blocked-off head keeps trying to activate some skills, but nothing works. Even that hooded girl who looks like she's straight out of Adventure Time says that not even her recovery skills are working. Nanas feels the first pressure mounting and informs the president that things aren't going to be easy. He agrees, admitting that facing the biggest monsters with almost no skills will be a real challenge. Then, out of nowhere, a cyclone starts to tear through the city, taking buildings with it. In the sky, the rift opens. The first thing to emerge is a foot. And when everyone looks up, who do they see but that damn midshield? The hunters are baffled. Why would an elf show up now? Then, someone points down. Of course, a horde of monsters is already pouring in. The poor hunters haven't even had time to start a proper fight before their morale plummets. Meanwhile, that damn midshield apologizes, saying that he's been away for 15 years, but now he's back on the bridge. Takuchi, I can't stand him, but at least the guy has some style. He's sitting there, waiting for the monster horde to arrive. He goes on to declare that it's ridiculous to think they can win just by having greater numbers. His stone armor activates, and the creatures charge, only to get a massive punch to the face. The beast drops like a piece of trash. He laments that it's a shame for the monsters, but his armor ability never uses mana. At least he has that advantage. The downside, however, is that he's alone against a horde of giants. Or maybe it's not so bad, because in the next panel he's already taken care of everything with a single sweeping motion, wiping out the enemies. That raw power boosted everyone's morale enough for them to gather the courage needed to defeat a level 1 goblin. Meanwhile, Nana is calmly clearing the path. An ogre suddenly appears from behind, charging at the chairman. Let's see how he handles that. The chairman glares at the creature and activates his giant shield. The ogre smashes into it, and its club shatters on impact. Dude, he literally used his shield as a weapon, taking down not just that one ogre, but 3 others coming up from behind. Nana is clearly impressed. No wonder this item is so rare. She decides to let Chairman Ituchi handle the big monsters. The only remaining problem is the other hunters. Their combat abilities are severely hampered without their powers, and the creatures keep pouring out of the portal nonstop. Then, suddenly, something flies overhead. A phoenix seems to be falling, but she dodges just in time. Oh, no. The second she turns, it's clear it's not a phoenix at all, but something like a griffin or a level 150 boss creature. I thought it looked kind of friendly, but now it's clearly in attack mode. Definitely not friendly. Nana immediately lunges at it, and the creature unleashes a blast of flames. Back to our protagonist and his group, they all receive the debuff alert. Naturally, Grant is not happy at all. Those who rely on their skills now have practically no chance to fight. Our boy warns Lucas that there's no time for nonsense. It's time to save this place. And up above, the skies are being invaded by countless dragons. Satoru and Grant flee with their backpacks, though I'm still trying to figure out what the hell they're for. Well, I guess I'll place my bet here. Place yours too. I'm betting he brought a bunch of swords to equip his golems. I might be completely wrong, but that's my bet. He's running away, and it's strange because Lucas is running right beside him, which is a bit confusing. Maybe it's not so bad, since it means he's closer to stealing the sword with CTRL+C. After all, the priority now is to level up the monsters on Earth. While he's going on with his humble, low IQ plan, Nana is locked in a face-off with the monster's attack. She bravely charges straight in, ready to take damage, and that means finishing off the creature. Then something rushes past her. The chairman steps in with his massive shield, defending her and warning that he'll keep the creature at bay so she can decapitate it. She just nods and lunges into the attack. The monster starts to sweep the area, but then she jumps, gets on top of it, and slashes down. But that bastard isn't stupid, it manages to dodge. I didn't expect it to be so smart. The damn thing even moved in to crush her. In response, she's forced to defend herself with her spear, but the monster launches a frontal assault. However, the captain throws his shield like a boomerang, forcing the beast to dodge. She thanks him and he replies that from the looks of it, these creatures are worse than he imagined. And now, that damn boss is on high alert, making it hard to catch it off guard. Seriously, what a boring boss. Already preparing for another attack. Give us a minute of peace, will you? I was trying to plan something, but Nana simply orders him to send his spinning shield, promising she'll take care of it. He agrees, and as the shield flies through the air, she uses it as a springboard to get on the boss's back. She launches a slash and finally decapitates that useless monster. Man, that creature was one of the first to appear. There are sure to be many more. Speaking of which, there's a giant steel brute over there tearing apart poor random hunters. Those poor guys, trying to come up with a plan. Then he sees this dude pulling out a scroll. What are the odds that he'll actually do something with it? Whoa, what is that? It sliced through everything. Seriously, that scroll is even more dangerous than I thought. But just as they start to celebrate, one of them suddenly collapses, spitting up blood. The next one feels the same, and, before you know it, the whole group goes down. That's when the damn mid-shield shows up, saying that they realized it too late. Every subspace creature released a huge amount of black mana upon death. They had no other choice. If they hadn't killed them, these monsters would have destroyed the city. He spreads his arms, summoning even more, and warns them that much more is coming. The little hunter, poor guy, instantly realizes that Tokyo is doomed. Then someone shows up and yells, "No, man, this isn't over yet. It's our boy." After 10 chapters of lugging those backpacks back and forth, he's stepping in. But with all that style, he tells the guy that things are just getting started. Bro, that dude recognizes Sano, bro. Out of nowhere, our boy is getting famous around the city. He immediately hands him some potions, saying there's no time to talk. The guy is kinda confused, right? He says it would be better if Senpai got out of there, but our boy just tells him to calm down, that he's going to take care of everything. He throws the backpacks on the ground and says the first thing he needs to do is take care of that damn debuff. A bunch of windows start popping up, right? The damn CTRL+C must be going full steam. The mana is spreading everywhere, and finally, everyone is going to be able to use their skills again. Obviously, it's not the same as when there was no debuff, but hey, it's much better than nothing. Once again, people start recognizing Sanoman. They say they remember that useless guy who delivered mana, and it seems that the mana is even reaching Nanase and the captain over there. It's really spreading all over the city. A bald guy says that now, with that amount of mana, maybe he can finally do something. They start fighting against some of the monsters, and of course, the one who's not happy about this at all is Midshield. He starts to consider his options, and when he looks at the protagonist, he already guesses it. Yes, it has to be control. The people, I thought, were going to do something even with the mana, start complaining that it's still too hard because there are too many of them. Creatures. They knew they were going to lose at this rate. Then, he comes by with a bunch of backpacks. Seriously, I want to know what the hell is in those things. People thought they were crazy, saying it was insane to run straight into a horde of monsters. That's when our guy's group comes face to face with the creatures. Satoru is already panicking, but Aruto tells him to calm down and start taking everything out of the backpacks. Grant starts throwing what look like a bunch of red balls onto the ground. The little golem does the same, just like our guys. The other hunters are all confused, not understanding what the hell this kid is trying to do. And that's when Aruto tells the golems to start leveling up. He starts hitting CTRL+V on the monster cores. Nanas is nearby, and so is the blonde guy. Both of them are totally lost about what this madman is trying to do. That's when a bunch of small golems start to rise from the ground. Nanas has no idea how he's summoning so many at once. Then one of the bosses arrives and throws a punch, shattering a bunch of them. Immediately, the hunters start to think that the kid's plan might not be so useful after all. But, man, the number of enemies is endless. And the little golems that survive start to climb up the monster's arms. The first one to reach its head transforms its hand into a knife and starts stabbing, taking the creature down. Then they jump onto the next one and the next, repeating the process. The hunters start to gain confidence. They finally feel like they have a chance thanks to these little guys. That's when Satoru and Grant say they're jumping into the fight too, and our guys' golems, man, they had leveled up like crazy and all reached level 3. That unlocked skill number 4, which allowed Aruto to give them specific orders. What he also liked was that he could now share senses over a much greater distance, so he activates skill number 3, which lets him regenerate a golem into a different form. The 3 of them fuse, explode, and from that, a giant appears. Aruto says it's finally time to take down the wyverns and, man, it turns out he made a dragon golem. The thing takes off into the sky and all the hunters just stand there totally confused. Then one of the wyverns launches a blast of fire at the golem. Bro, I thought it was going to be one of those epic moments where the golem just flies through the fire and comes out unscathed, but nope. The dragon grabs it in midair and slams it into the ground like trash, completely shattered. What a disaster. Aruto is just standing there thinking that, just as he imagined, facing a wyvern head-on like that so suddenly was basically impossible. So he hits CTRL+V on the respawn and little dragons start coming out of the ground. The hunters can't believe it, since the big one didn't stand a chance. Another blast of fire comes from the wyvern hitting them all directly. Nanas thinks this is all just stupid, or like if they all keep taking those hits, the result will be the same. But then, weirdly, one of them starts spinning like a Beyblade top and creates these fire vortexes that launch attacks piercing through the wyvern's chest. Not just one of them, but all the wyverns. Man, I don't know how, made those energy drills or whatever, but I know our boy is leveling up like crazy again. As always, the hunters are in disbelief and Nanase tells them to snap out of it and help finish off the rest. Haruto gives the order for the golems to return to the ground and clean up the rest as well. It was time to activate auto-leveling. Achi is also fighting nearby. As he watches the creatures, he thinks that even though the little guys looked weak, they were actually super helpful. That's when one suddenly grabs his back and then 3 or 4 more of them pile on and hug him. He's kind of confused. Satoru says that since he's wearing that armor, the golems probably see him as an ally. Takeuchi asks if his shield is also a golem. Satoru explains that it was actually the first gift he received from Haruto, and if he keeps leveling it up, it will eventually become a full-body armor. Of course, Takeuchi doesn't like that one bit. Face to face with another creature, he tells himself that his armor is nothing like those things. He cuts down 3 enemies in a row while saying not to lump him in with that trash. Satoru apologizes, saying he didn't mean it like that. Meanwhile, Lucas is standing by the defeated dragons looking lost. He now finally understands the power of Haruto, as the kid had taken down all the wyverns by himself. What scares him the most is imagining what would happen if Mikhail ever gets that ability. Just then, Haruto appears, calling out to him, asking who it was that opened the subspace. But Lucas says his family is in danger, so he can't betray those people. Haruto says he knows Lucas is hiding something he doesn't want to tell him. He's felt it ever since they met. Lucas lowers his head and says he'll tell him that the chaos hasn't even really begun. And then, suddenly, the ground beneath them starts to break apart and a bunch of tree roots begin to sprout out. It looks like Haruto is being sucked in and Lucas recognizes it as one of Mid-Shield's abilities. If that guy is already using something like this, maybe things aren't going so well for them after all. Besides, Lucas could have taken advantage of having the holy sword to purify that place along with Sano. But just then, some roots grab his arms and legs. Oh no, now he's trapped with his arm raised like this and it looks like they're going to steal his sword. A rookie move, no doubt. The roots are now taller than any building in the city. The hunters have no idea what's going on, but Nanas is sure, based on the way things are developing again. Whoever is behind this, they're close. That's when she runs into Mid-Shield up ahead and wonders, what the hell is that elf doing there? Honestly, I had already forgotten about the whole fight that's happening right now between Shirosaki and Kurosaki. Our knockoff Harry Potter is kind of confused because his ability is acting weird. Kurosaki explains that a person needs to overcome their addiction to dark mana before even starting to control it. The tattooed guy doesn't quite get what he's talking about, but he charges anyway, crashing into Kurosaki's barrier. Man, it didn't even last a second. It shattered instantly, but apparently, he managed to return the blow. The attack. Shirosaki is startled. This bastard actually knows a way to survive dark mana poisoning. If that's really possible, then maybe, just maybe, his brother Suda is still alive in some form. He backs away and Kurosaki says he doesn't know what's going through his head, but he better focus on the fight. Besides, absorbing and controlling dark mana isn't something just anyone can do. Ares comments on something and Shirosaki says yes. He noticed that his black lightning mana had been absorbed. That's when Kurosaki launches a purple slash towards them both. But it seems to pass right between them and they dodge it quite easily. The building behind them is completely destroyed, but at least they're okay. Still, the bastard celebrates, saying that his abilities have now become useless. He charges again and suddenly his sword and his legs start to freeze. That was Ares' doing, and Shirosaki wants to know if she managed to fix that debuff that was blocking mana usage. She replies, no, not quite. It's probably that damn Gerudo pumping infinite mana for everyone. She's only using about half of her full power, but it seems to be enough to stop that guy. Kurosaki, however, overhears that about infinite mana. He instantly shatters the ice and Ares realizes if half her power isn't going to be enough. Still, she launches another attack. Kurosaki tells her to stop launching those half-assed attacks because the result will always be the same. He walks right through her spell and says that he is the guild master of Blood Tower. Honestly, that guild of his sounds pretty pathetic and sad, nothing to brag about. He's going to launch a blow at Ares, but she raises a bunch of magic circles to block it. He warns her that a barrier made by humans won't work. He simply absorbs any type of mana and gets stronger. Man, this guy is broken. He shatters her shield and even pulls her towards him, but she doesn't give up that easily. She pulls out a scroll, rips it in half, and raises another barrier. At least this time, he says that one is incompatible with his mana, but even without absorbing it, he destroys it with a single attack. Shirosaki gets back in the fight. Here he comes launching lightning bolts again. Although you'd think he'd know by now that the guy can absorb them, at least before it's absorbed, it pushes him back a bit, and that's when Ares unleashes another ice blast. Man, this Kurosaki guy is weak. Like even with all his absorption and while the other two are still debuffed, they're kicking his ass. Then, Shirosaki lands the final blow, saying it's too soon for a low-level gang leader to call himself a guild master. He now demands that Kurosaki tell him where he got the Shadow Step ability or dying will be the easy part. Kurosaki just smirks and says he now understands why the guy has been looking for him. It must be a question he's been desperate to ask. Shirosaki gets cold and tells him to answer now or die, but the guy completely ignores him and says he heard something very interesting from Lucas. Bro, nobody in this story ever finishes his sentence. He starts to say something and out of nowhere unleashes a purple power mixed with ice and traps Shirosaki. Suddenly, Shirosaki finds himself on the frozen ground, and when he looks down he sees his brothers, then poisoned and dying. And just when it gets intense, the scene changes. Back to Midshield, approaching Lucas, who is tied up, and asking him if he really befriended CTRL+C. Before Lucas could even answer, the guy snatches the holy sword and says he'd been waiting to get his hands on it. After all, it's super important for the plan. Lucas, the poor fool, is only now realizing that he was kept around from the beginning just for the sword. Midshield replies that of course that was the case, or because the power of CTRL+ is essential to help CTRL+C. He needs to combine the power of CTRL+C with his homeland. He then says that now that he has what he wanted, he's going to tell Lucas everything. In the elf dimension, everyone is cursed, and he's one of them. Lucas, confused, asks if that means he's trying to steal CTRL+C from the kid. Midshield says that, unfortunately, since he's from another dimension, he can't absorb a curse that belongs to this one. However, if he kills the kid right now, the power will transfer to Lucas. That's because the curse, when its host dies, jumps to the nearest person who also has a control power. Once Lucas is stuck with CTRL+C, Midshield will show up, kill him, and absorb everything. Poor Lucas is hit by reality. He's been nothing but a disposable pawn since day one. But just then, bam! A puff of smoke appears behind Midshield. Haruto appears, saying he heard something very interesting. He goes to attack, but Midshield manages to block him. He then launches an attack with vines, saying it's funny that Haruto copied the shadow ability. Haruto replies that he knows Midshield is the bastard who opened those portals in Tokyo. He unleashes his sand-based attack, but Midshield isn't very impressed. He says Haruto is just wasting his talent. The webs close in on him, but he uses branches to protect himself and says that won't even leave a scratch on him. But Haruto replies that strength doesn't come from the ability itself. It all depends on how you use it. With that, he activates the power of the Kalisha sword and the bear claws. The webs pierce through the roots, but Midshield escapes. He's impressed, but says he expected Haruto to act desperate. After all, this is the strongest curse of all. Haruto suddenly appears above him, asking if he's speechless now after seeing how he fights. The bastard dodges and says no. Actually, he's now even more eager to steal his power, but Haruto grabs him by the shoulder and says that's exactly what he wanted. He's been after the guy's subspace from the beginning, but when the system tries to locate it, no subspace was found. Midshield grabs his arm and says that, unfortunately, nothing can be copied from him. He then throws Haruto like a rag doll and gives him a slap across the face with a tentacle. I've definitely heard that line in another type of story, but let's not go there. Lucas is just sitting there with his face in his hands like a complete clown. Bro, how many times are you going to wonder if you were used as a pawn? This is like the 6th time already. Well, okay. To be fair, the guy is a complete mess. After losing the power of the Holy Sword, he can no longer CTRL+C. That means that an overwhelming avalanche of information is now crashing into his mind. At that moment, he starts to wonder why Mithield and CTRL+C are even connected. What is that guy trying to do here? And that huge thing in front of him is this subspace that Midshield controls. He can almost see Midshield's subspace physically, and he wonders why it's so huge. That's when he realizes that the subspace and the sword look somewhat similar. Maybe the guy is using another type of item. That would explain why Naruto couldn't copy it. He was trying to imitate the ability, but that wasn't the right move. Anyway, we go back to the fight, with the villain who stole the sword. He's telling our Harry Potter that he'll be trapped in the abyss forever, at least until someone kills him. He then launches an attack toward Ares, asking if she's Nishiara's daughter. She sticks out her arm and raises an ice barrier, but once again he shatters it. That's when he says that he'll clearly have to change his approach. In his next attack, he pulls some Tokyo Ghoul-style moves, but she dodges. The problem is, he anticipated the dodge and was already right next to her swinging the sword again. But this girl has serious mana and puts up yet another ice barrier. Kurosaki comments that her determination to find her mother almost makes him cry, but Ares didn't come for the drama. She's about to drop the hammer. She says that the most dangerous people are usually the dumbest, but she's not going to lose, not today, because only those who have mastered a single thing are truly strong. As Bruce Lee would say, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. I think that's how it goes, right? That's the legend. And what she's practiced her whole life? Man. Her ice magic is on another level now. She drops a damn building-size ice meteor right on Kurosaki's head. The thing explodes in the middle of the city. The blizzard is expanding everywhere. Bro, we're in a full-on ice apocalypse now. Even Kurosaki is shocked, asking if she's crazy for unleashing that kind of attack in the middle of a city. But when he tries to get up, he's already half frozen. Ares approaches and tells him not to worry. Everyone had already been evacuated. She adds that she knows that Shirosaki, just like her, also mastered a single skill. The expression on Kurosaki's face changes the moment our tattooed Harry Potter shows up. Man, he realizes there's no way out, and strangely enough, Shirosaki's eyes are glowing purple. He's using dark mana, the bastard. Wants to know how he absorbed mana from the abyss and still looks normal. Shirosaki just says he made a promise that he would be the one to kill him. Then Bam slashes with his wand, sending a wave that goes right through him. It can't be. He just cut him in two. Don't tell me this bastard is going to pull a comeback anyway, Ares asks. If there wasn't something Shirosaki wanted to ask Kurosaki, but now the guy is in full Demon King mode, saying he already got all the information he needed. Sending him to the abyss was the worst mistake he could have made, because once he got there and observed it, he figured out how to overcome the addiction to the abyss's mana. The dark abilities Kurosaki had were the key. He remembers that Soda once brought a book that talked about a dark ability. He said that maybe they should learn it. It could be useful. Of course, he didn't want to get into that. Playing with dark mana wasn't exactly a great idea, but in the present, he trusts that Soda was smart enough to find the solution and survive somehow. And with that, he launches into the sky, telling Ares they have to go help Aruto immediately. He'll explain everything later. For now, just having a little hope again was enough. Meanwhile, Haruto is still in the middle of his fight with the pretty boy elf Midshield, who is now losing his mind from all the teleporting. He says he's going to seal that damn ability. He throws a strike near Haruto's foot with the holy sword. The sword glows, does something, and then Mitchell announces that from now on, all dark mana abilities are useless. Haruto lunges into an attack thinking, if Mitchell cancelled his dark mana powers, then his own should be cancelled too, right? But nope, Mitchell says there's no problem controlling mana that has already been nullified. And with that, he grabs Haruto by the waist and goes for the final blow. But our boy resists, blocks another attack. His sword breaks, like, completely shattered. But that doesn't matter. Time for Control B, baby. He pulls out the Chalice sword. Now, real question here. Why weren't you using this sword from the beginning, you lunatic? Midshield recognizes it immediately. He says it's a copy of Frederick's sword. Haruto just tells him to zip it and fires a beam of light right at him. The elf blocks it, saying that, as expected, the power of that sword is incredible. Haruto lunges again, saying that's not going to be enough. But just as he goes for a downward slash, the expression on Midshield's face suddenly changes. A portal opens behind him, and poof, he disappears right in front of Haruto. The next second, he appears behind him and lands a small stab on his shoulder. And the bastard actually says, just because you leveled up with that sword doesn't mean you have the experience to back it up. Haruto doesn't care about anything this guy says. He's only interested in figuring out how to steal his abilities. He takes a potion from his inventory, but the system warns him wounds caused by the holy sword cannot be healed. Mitchell laughs and says he already knew those potions wouldn't work. He lands another hit on Haruto and asks, what else can you copy? Are you Mr. Control-C? Don't tell me you're already out of tricks. Haruto just replies, of course not. This is just getting started. Then, suddenly, slash, a cut comes from Midshield's side. He tries to defend himself, but he's sent flying across the area. Worst of all, his sword falls to the ground, and just as he tries to recover, boom! A rain of hellfire comes down on him, forcing him to raise vines to protect himself. And with that blue flame, you know who it is, right? The one and only Nana's. Haruto thanks her and she says that thanks to her golems, Almost all the monsters had already been eliminated. Haruto already sensed it. He hadn't stopped gaining experience that whole time. Then Lucas steps forward and picks up the holy sword. He says that today is the day he will pay for everything he did to him and his family. Nanis's fire continues to burn the vines and Mithield slips into a portal, muttering that this hellfire power is really something else, but that it won't last. He launches an attack made of roots at the two of them. Nanes responds without hesitation, saying it won't be difficult to burn all those corrupted trees. But Mithield doesn't stop. He launches more roots from above, trying to trap her in a cage of vines. She easily cuts them with another slash of her witch sword, before the idiot can figure out how to counter her. Boom! Haruto appears right behind him saying he's still alive. He unleashes a slash that seems to hit hard, but when the smoke clears, Mithield emerges from another portal. "I'm already tired of playing," he says. "It's time to move on to the final chapter." The ground beneath them begins to crack. Thousands of seeds from the corrupted trees begin to sprout. Nanes tries to destroy them with another explosion, but the moment the seeds burst, a purple mist starts to spread. Mithield announces that this mist is 10 times more toxic than the previous ones. Anyone who touches it becomes instantly addicted to dark mana, and the more they attack, the more they use the surrounding mana, the worse it will get. Haruto starts to think that maybe he should have copied the holy sword after all, even if it meant giving up his shadow movement ability. But just then, Lucas slams the sword into the ground. A radiant light erupts from the area. The mist begins to vanish, scattering in all directions. Lucas is there in total Chad mode, holding the glowing sword. Nancy and Haruto watch as Mithield starts to lose it, screaming, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He launches another barrage of vines at them, but Lucas keeps moving forward. He says, "You betrayed me first. I don't care anymore." As he gets closer to Mithield, the elf taunts him, asking if Lucas no longer cares about his family, but Lucas just leaps forward, yelling that he's sick of being a tool in the hands of others. He activates the attack, launching Angelus, but again the damn elf blocks it and, of course, starts to slip into another portal, boasting that nothing can even scratch him. But Lucas yells at him, "You're not getting away. I want to see what happens when a dark mana user is pierced by the holy sword." Lucas is forced to dodge the attack. The sword actually shatters the portal Mithield was using, but the elf still manages to land a blow of roots right to his chest. Still, the portal really was destroyed. Nanase confirms it for him. He has nowhere left to run. This is the end. Mithield actually looks worried. He knows now that if he's hit by the hellfire in this state, he's in real danger. He raises more roots to defend himself, but Nanis's flames are spreading all over the city. It's getting out of control. That's when Lucas calls out to Haruto and says he's finally figured out why Haruto hasn't been able to copy Mithield's abilities. It's because they're not abilities at all. It's an item, just like the holy sword, and most likely an item that connects him to another dimension. Makes sense? That guy is clearly not from Earth. Nanase wants to know how he even is still in this world. Surviving a dungeon break should cost a ton of mana just to stay here. Lucas says he's well aware of that, which means that Guy is using something, either an item or another skill, to keep himself anchored. Gerudo, meanwhile, is thrilled with that information. Now he knows why he couldn't copy anything. It's because he hasn't touched the right item yet. That raises a question, though. Why is Lucas suddenly helping them? Lucas answers out of respect, because Gerudo had the chance to kill him and steal. Control F, but he didn't. Gerudo thinks to himself, of course, he wouldn't kill someone like that just to get a power. Nanase, who heard everything, now demands to know what all this talk of control and copying is about. Also, why Lucas is using the holy sword. That sword was supposed to be given to Ares. Gerudo is baffled. He doesn't even know where to begin explaining. But just then, from the middle of the flames, more branches burst out. Midshield has returned, barely alive. A complete mess, but still standing. The problem is, something's changed. Midshield, having absorbed the mana from the roots into himself and now completely unhinged, is screaming. The real disaster begins now. Gerudo dodges Midshield's first strike and yells at Nanase to hit him with Hellfire. Lucas says that he can also use the light again if necessary. Gerudo charges in first, asking them to block the guy's vision. Nanase unleashes a vertical wave of flames, closing off the area. While the elf is distracted, Gerudo focuses. He's trying to figure out exactly which item contains the skills. He touches one of the corrupted roots and the system tells him, "You need 2 more pieces to absorb the skill and vitality of Harassal." He tries CTRL+B, and another message pops up. Target's HP, 15%. Gerudo realizes this same alert is probably also appearing for Midshield, which means the guy is on the verge of collapse. He uses CTRL+B on the first batch of roots and they turn golden. Midshield is baffled. That bastard just copied the corrupted tree he was using. But just then, Lucas drops down from above, telling him it's no time to worry about that. Midshield tries to use the trunk's skill, but the system denies it. Hrassel's routes unavailable. He's confused and almost gets hit in the back of the neck by a fire whip. He dodges it, but it still hits him in the chest. He tries to open a subspace with his other hand, but Lucas immediately warns Gerudo, don't let him open it. Gerudo fuses the copied root ability with his spiderwebs and bear claws, immobilizing both of the elf's arms. The guy is a walking build now. Spider, tree, bear. He's got the whole combo. Nane says that when someone crosses into this world from another dimension, they become an enemy and it's her duty to eliminate them. The blonde elf scoffs, saying it's ridiculous that they're treating him like a monster. She smiles and tells him not to worry, because she likes to finish off monsters quickly. Then she unleashes another blast of hellfire, engulfing the entire street in roaring flames. Bro, what the hell? This time they really fried him. There's no way he's walking out of that. Nanase even compliments him, saying that's impressive, that he still has the strength to scream. But then Mithield's face twists, and he says, if I can't purify the land I came from, then I'll leave this place just as ruined. Lucas screams, begging him not to do it. But out of nowhere, a gigantic pillar of spatial light shoots into the sky. Mithield calmly declares, now all of Tokyo is in danger and I couldn't care less. Right in front of Haruto, a huge subspace forms and he realizes that his chance to get something like this is slipping away. So, what does he do? He charges, running him straight through the stomach. Brutal, but he used too much force and ends up falling into the rift himself. His friends scream for him, but Haruto is already floating in some dark place, full of suspended stars. Wondering if this is the subspace contained in the object, he crouches down thinking that maybe physical contact will do the trick. As soon as his hand touches the ground, the system issues a notice. Another option available. You can copy this subspace, but just as he confirms the command, the system throws him a warning. This is an object connected to another dimension. An exact copy is not possible. Haruto stands there confused. What's all this about another dimension? Still, he manages to copy part of the dimension, but he can only access a limited section unless he gets a dimensional key. Then the system starts to synchronize with the copied subspace and suddenly he realizes he can open it like an inventory. A CTRL+C+, level up access, the whole interface. I'm starting to lose track here myself. But you know all these pieces are going to fit together eventually. It's building up to something. Mithield says he can't believe Haruto's CTRL+C can even copy objects from another dimension, but now it makes sense. These fragments are technically objects. Now Haruto ignores him and just wants to know why he's doing all this. And it's time for the villain's tragic backstory. The effeminate elf says his homeland is on the brink of extinction. He stole the dimensional key from the fallen spirit king. Haruto reacts. Wait, is that the guy I have to kill to finish copying this subspace? But Mithield tells him to forget it. That guy was the one who brought his world to ruin. Just when he was about to be killed by him, he managed to steal a fragment and teleport away. And that's the only reason he's still alive. Haruto asks how that supposed skill became an object. Mithield explains that he used a curse just like the one Haruto has, but this one comes from his own dimension. And, oh my god, he has the curse of shift. Now, is that shift like the keyboard key or shift as in dimensional shift? We don't even know. Probably both. Honestly, this author must just look at his keyboard when naming skills. Okay, CTRL+C, CTRL+V, F, shift, perfect, done. That's when Takeuchi shows up in full armor, followed by a horde of mini golems and Masato calling from behind. Nana smiles and then the captain arrives, reporting that all the monsters in the area have been eliminated. Takeuchi is about to mention that there was something else in another part of the city, but bam, Shirosaki cuts in, saying she already handled it. Immediately, Nana wonders what happened to Shirosaki with purple eyes glowing. He says, that bastard didn't want to be captured, so I had to kill him. Nanis notices that there's something off about him, but she congratulates him on the job anyway. Mas wants to know where the hell Haruto is. Nanase says he's inside that dimension along with that elf. Mas warns that it's dangerous, but Nanase reassures him. The elf was practically dead, so Haruto is probably fine. Lucas, on the other hand, says that they need to seal the portal now, before even more powerful creatures start appearing. Takeuchi looks at Lucas and asks, and who is this blondie? And why the hell does he have the holy sword? Nanis instantly says that guy was working with a damn elf. Of course, Takeuchi doesn't take it well, grabbing Lucas by the neck and demanding to know why a hunter from a noble family was helping someone from another dimension. Lucas replies, I will take full responsibility for my actions. Takeuchi glares at him and throws him to the ground, saying that when this is over, his family will have a lot to explain. Lucas gets up without a word and runs towards the portal dimensional, saying they must seal it before that creature appears. Inside the subspace, Haruto is shocked to discover that other worlds have their own curses. Mitchell admits he was surprised too and that it's a shame he can only use shift on skills, but now he wants to know how he can steal something that is truly unique to another dimension. Now, it all makes sense to Haruto. That's why they were hunting him. And Mitchell says that once Mikkel steals CTRL+C, he's going to open a portal between the two worlds and bring the damned grammar here. The plan almost worked 15 years ago, if it weren't for Nishihara getting in the way. To Haruto, he says it seems the plan has failed again. So, why are you talking as if you've won? Still engulfed in flames, Mitchell begins to fade away. It doesn't matter if I die here, nothing changes. And then, bam, a gigantic claw crushes his body out of nowhere. Haruto is sent flying, and when he gets up and looks, a giant dragon towers over him. He's stunned. Why the hell is this thing inside the subspace? He sees the pool of blood. There's no doubt, Mitchell is really dead, but if that thing gets out into Tokyo, it's going to be a nightmare. The dragon attacks him with a swipe of its claw. He dodges and starts running, trying to find where the hell the exit is. Then, a light erupts from below. Lucas appears and tells him not to worry. Subspace creatures are weak against the holy sword. Haruto asks what he's going to do, but before Lucas can answer, the dragon roars, sending him flying, and he drops the sword. And well, so much for that, their weak theory. Haruto sees the guy got wrecked and that the sword is just lying there. The dragon approaches and is about to crush him like a cockroach. And with that, my guys, the video ended here. What did you think of our boy wins? I hope you liked it and see you in the next video, guys. Take care.